Dear listeners, thank you for your incredible support in helping our channel grow. We're aiming for 1,000 subscribers, so please support us by subscribing and helping us reach this milestone. Now let's start the story. Present, Ben, at the cabin. Some soon-to-be dead scumsucker is firing my Barrett. I know where I left it, so I run toward the location as the firing continues. What I don't understand is why one of the greenies would be firing it unless. Holy shit, it may be some sort of trap. And what the hell was Ivan talking about it being a seal puppy who was using the Barrett? What the hell is a seal puppy? Ivan keeps talking about this wolf that is also a lady. Who and what the hell is that? Ivan complains, Unca Ben, I run can fast, but not run this fast. Make slower, please. I felt badly because I had been running pretty damn fast, so I apologize. Sorry, Ivan. I will slow up. And I do just that. I mentally kept account of the shots. While the Barrett mags would hold 10 rounds, I never loaded more than 8 because this rifle had a nasty habit of jamming on the second round when the mag was fully loaded. Yeah, I could have fixed it, but there were always better things to do. The scumsucker was up to 6 and would soon run out of ammo. Then there, but was mine, and I had plans to kick it to hell and back. Present, Linus, at the cabin. After I left Stacy and the other scumsuckers to their own stupid devices, I got lucky and saw them put Maria in a porta-potty and padlock the door. I could only assume this was some sort of new torture that scumsucker might figured out. My luck continued as I found a good place to watch what was going on. As I was checking out my surroundings, I looked to the side, noticed something that didn't quite fit in, and hot damn, it's Ben's 50 caliber Barrett. It was hidden well, but not well enough to escape notice by this seal. With my first shot, I blew the hell out of the porta-potty's door where they put Maria. I knew the round ripping the door off its hinges had to make her ears ring, but I figured anything was better than those damn nasty porta-potty. I had been the unfortunate occupant of one of them to take care of a necessity. However, they were more than screwed the hell up. They were screwed in the butt messed up. I made a decision, and all the following shots were to distract the special forces while Maria escaped. I wish I had seen that son of a bitch Mike. I would have blown his head off twice and ended all this bullshit. I had to admit, this was fun as hell, and the scope on this rifle was more than spot on. It was perfect. I had never fired a more accurate rifle. As always, the suppressor heated up and the heat waves off it made it hard as hell to see my targets well. However, I could see well enough to blow the hell out of the propane tanks outside the mess tent. They didn't catch on fire because I didn't have tracer rounds, but it did make the special forces haul out of the tent. Things were good until I fired a shot and the bolt locked back. Hell, I was out of ammo and out of fun. I did see where Maria ran into the woods, so I put the rifle back where it was and started to loop around to meet her. Present, Destiny, at the cabin. I had tried to tell Ivan that Linus the seal had used Ben's rifle, but somehow Ivan didn't understand me and called Linus a seal puppy. I guess that was the closest thing to a seal that he knew. I watched Linus and was glad he didn't kill any special forces because Ben would have been blamed for it. He finally ran out of ammo, put the rifle back where Ben hid it, and took off running after the girl he freed from the porta-potty. I now understood. The girl he freed was his girlfriend, and now his actions make perfect sense. I finally see Ben run up with Ivan behind him. When he looks around, he doesn't see Linus, so I switch back to Destiny and walk out from behind the trees. He sees me and demands, "Where the hell is the scumsucker that fired my rifle?" I knew my choice of words would be important, so I answered, "Ben, it was Linus, a former Navy SEAL, and he treated your rifle with the greatest respect. He used it to free his girlfriend from one of the nasty porta-potties you blew up." Ben complains, "God, no one fires my rifles except for me. I'm going to kick his butt when I find him." I laugh, and Ben again demands. Present, Ben, at the cabin. Destiny laughs her peculiar laugh about me kicking Linus's, but so I demand, "Just what the hell is so funny about me kicking his butt?" She continues to smile and answers, "Ben, you have so many people lining up to kick your, but that you might not get a chance to fight Linus. This is news to me, so I ask, what the hell are they upset at me for?" She smiles and answers, "They are all upset about what you've done to Jennifer." I counter, "Hell, I set her free because I can't give her any children. If they want to try to kick my butt, fine. I will gladly screw them up." Destiny's next question pisses me off. Present, Destiny, at the cabin. I ask Ben a question I know will upset him, but I calculate he won't hit me for it, so I ask, "Ben, how do you know for certain you can't give her any children?" It puzzles me greatly because I clearly see a future for you and Jennifer in a happy family with twins, one a boy and one a girl. He openly laughs and declares, "Now I know you're not a shaman. Otherwise you would know that Hussein's tortures screwed me up and I can't father any children." She laughs that strange laugh of her and replies, "Ben, I am only telling you what I see. You and Jennifer will have twins, one a boy and one a girl. And they are so cute. The boy has your good features, and the girl greatly resembles Jennifer. It's my turn to laugh and I tease. Well, that's certainly better than the other way around. She begins to reply when Ivan interrupts. Uncle Ben, we need to take me to the private place you want me to hide. Ben lovingly touches him on the head and answers, You're right, Ivan. Let's move it. We began to run, then I shock Ben when I pick up and carry Ivan. I explain, we can run faster with me carrying him. Ben stumbles when Ivan says, Thank you, Wolf, that is also a lady. I am getting tired. Uncle Ben run very and much faster than Papa. I blush and whisper, Ivan, that was supposed to be our secret. Present, Ben, at the cabin. Ivan calls Destiny the wolf that is also a lady he's been babbling about. It shocks me so much I damn near trip over a tree root. That kid must see something in her that I don't see, because when I look at her, I don't see anything that remotely resembles a wolf. I pretty much just see a crunchy granola hippie chick. She whispers something to him. Then he looks sad and doesn't say anything else. I can't wait to get Ivan alone so I can ask him about the wolf that is also a lady. I do remember some stories that my grandfather told me about animals that could take human form, but I had always dismissed them as very tall tales, best told when drinking heavily. We get closer to the bunker and Destiny announces, Ben, we cannot go to the bunker right now since there are troops in the area. How the hell she knows the greenies are close to the bunker, I have no idea. But even though she's wrong about Jens and me, she's been damn right about too many other things. I think for a moment and say, that's okay. The bunker and all the equipment I set up will take care of itself, and we have other places to hide. Then we change directions to head for. Present, Stacy escaped. I thought it would be pretty easy to take care of the many problems Mike created, but I guess I made a mistake. I'm also sure that if Ben was here, he'd tell me, Stacy, you underestimated your opponent. Don't do that again. And he would be right. Hell, while Grandmama taught me many useful things, I think that Ben refined her teachings, refined them with an emphasis towards stark reality. I look at the Marines and state, I'm not sure what your plans are, and perhaps you will just get the hell out of here, but I'm going to take the bear, the horses, and we're going to look for Ben. One of the Marines answers, Ms., we're Marines, and we don't run from a fight. If Ben is giving the greenies hell, we're going to find some way to help him. His statement gets a hearty hurrah from the rest of the Marines. I smile at them and reply, well, if any of you live through this debacle, look me up afterwards because I will have a serious job for you on my security team. Another of the Marines answers, Ms., it would be an honor to work for you, and I think we'll be able to hold our own against the greenies even without weapons. I nod my head and affirm, FEP. He answers, yes, Ms., field expedient weapons. You'd be amazed at what we can make out of some simple things. Then he surprises the hell out of me when he says, good hunting, Ms., but we're betting that even with the horses and bear you will never find Ben. That assertion casts more doubt on my hopes than I let the Marines know as I reply, thank you, and it will be fun when we prove you wrong. He finally cautions, Ms., we're going to be setting quite a few traps, so you need to make sure to be careful. I would love to see what they are going to do, but I have been to find. I look at Bo and Wojciech and ask, well, are you two ready to find Ben? Wojciech yowls and takes off running with Bo on his six, so I prompt Patches, well, what are you waiting for? She takes off after them like her, but on fire, which reminds me, I don't have a saddle. I lean down, wrap my arms around her neck, and pray she doesn't throw me. Present, Samantha, taken prisoner. I can tell that Liz has some issues with me, and I decide it's time to clear the air. She's talking to Bernie, so I walk over and start, Liz, I can tell you're not happy with me, and I think we need to talk about it. Bernie, being the typical man, says, well, that's my cue to leave. I grab his arm as he walks by, smile at him, and request, Bernie, please stay and help us like you have in the past. Liz glares at me and says, Samantha Stevens, you bet I have some issues with you. I don't like the fact that you sold us out to Stacy Summers. I have had my fill of Liz acting like the queen bee, so I get in her face and announce, Elizabeth Morgan, when I came to work for you, I thought it was going to be different than working for the German station that wanted me to earn my way by being on my knees. However, after you saying that, I realized that you're not really any better than them. Don't worry about firing me, because I quit. And I storm away. Present, Liz, taken prisoner. I am in shock because I never expected this from Samantha. Bernie comes over, takes my hand, and says, Liz, I love you, but you really screwed up this time. America loves Samantha, and unless you apologize to her, we're going to lose her. I begin to complain, but Bernie silences my complaint with a kiss, pulls away, and explains, Liz, you're in the wrong here. Stop thinking of this from Jennifer's point of view and think about it as the great reporter you are, and you will see that I'm right. Bernie gives me another great kiss, then just walks away from me. I look at Samantha, process what Bernie said, and begin to think. Son of a bitch, I hate it when he's right. I need to find Samantha and apologize to her. Present, Jens, in the CSH. Hell's bells, I wake up and realize that the weapons I created are gone. Shit, I was so tired that I fell asleep, and someone came in and disarmed me. I want to cry, but I know I have to be strong, so I resign myself to giving as good as I get if the Sedankina girls come back. However, it's not them that comes back to visit me, and he's holding my weapons. Mike grins and says, "Good try, Donaldson, but when you fell asleep, I came in and relieved you of these pathetic weapons." I glare at him and counter, "Oh yeah, if you give me either of those you would see how pathetic they are." He looks like he is considering it, then he evilly laughs and says, "Know that when I beat your butt, I wanted to be a fair fight." He starts to wheel away, stops, spins around, and says, "By the way, and I'm not even sure why I'm telling you this, the Sedankina bitches aren't here anymore, so you won't have to worry about them." I blink my eyes in disbelief and question, what happened to them? He turned away and gave an evil chuckle. "I took care of them like I do with all my enemies. Now get some rest, and I will be back later to talk to you more about Ben." If that scumsucker thinks I'm going to tell him anything about Ben, then he's crazier than he thinks I am. Present, Todd, Ira, Mira, and Alexei, leaving the CSH cabin. This was an interesting change of events. I had wrongly assumed that Mike would add the four of us to the current group of prisoners, but instead we were loaded into a Chinook helicopter and flown away with a very serious armed escort. Mira observes, "We are traveling east." Ira completes the sentence. "Our possible final location could be Denver." Then she continues, I question Todd. "Todd, your knowledge of Mike is greater than ours due to your greater number of contacts. Could you provide us with insight into his plans?" Todd shrugs his muscular shoulders and signs. "With the threat of Jennifer's Marines neutralized, we represent the next greatest threat to his plan to capture Ben. He knows of Myra's feelings toward Ben and also the power you three wield with your diplomatic passports, so he is removing us from the equation." My sister Mira unwisely becomes agitated, which invokes the ire of the armed escort. "I cannot let that illegitimate male offspring of a female Saluki capture my Ben. I announce, I cannot let him take my Ben." Then I oculate many weapons aimed at my corporeal self, my sister, my brother, and Todd. One of the armed escorts threatens, "Ms. Remain in your seat and stay calm. Our orders are to shoot to kill if you resist." Ira looks at me and orders, "Mira, this will not end well for us if you continue to misbehave. Please control your emotions." I sass my sister, "That is easy for you to say because your boyfriend is here with you." I know my sisters well enough to see the storm clouds building on the horizon. Mira should know better than to tease Ira about Todd. Their emotional states are putting everyone in danger because they are not observing the soldiers. Their trigger fingers have left the side of their weapons and are resting upon the triggers. I shock them both when I order, "Mira and Ira, do you both have a death wish to apply to all of us? Stop acting like silly schoolgirls and pay attention to the team guarding us. They are ready to fire while you two risk our lives with your childish behavior." Thankfully, my words had the proper effect. They both look at the team, flash some hand signs between them, and calm themselves. Mira continues with her directional analysis. "We are now headed south." My sister Ira completes, "And the flight time is greater than the time required to reach Denver." Mira postulates, "South would be in the direction of Colorado Springs and the Army base, Camp Carson." I correct, "I believe you mean Fort Carson, which is where the Special Forces hail from." "Yes, we assume we are headed to Fort Carson, and then we learn the lesson of what happens when you assume. You make an butt out of you and me when we land at present. Zarika and Yasmin escape. After our great meal, we go outside only to see the fuzz swarming around the ugly car. I look at Yasmin and question, "What are we going to do now?" "It is too far to walk to Ben's cabin." Yasmin smiles, holds up the lady's plastic card, and questions, "Well, it worked in the restaurant. Perhaps we can rent a taxi with it." We carefully walk out of the parking lot at Bojas so we do not attract the attention of the fuzz and head toward the main road. Present, Tom, Byron, and Inga. It's raining hell on the narcotic lord. For once, things on this mission worked like they were supposed to. Of course, only now that it's over. We made it out of the narcotic lord's compound without getting shot at anymore and pick up Byron, who was grinning like a mule eating briars. I demand, "Just what the hell are you so happy about?" Tom's not happy, so I decide that subterfuge is my best weapon, so I bend the truth. "I'm happy that we all made it out alive and that we're all headed back to America." Then I ask the first thing on the top of my mind, "Have you talked to Jennifer lately?" Tom gets defensive and answers, "Hell no. I've been too busy trying to save our collective butts. I will give it a try now." He tries but doesn't get an answer. That's strange, so I suggest, "Try Jack." He calls Jack. We wait and Tom says, "Hell, I don't get an answer from him either." Inga adds, "I find it more than unusual that both Jennifer and Jack do not answer their phones, as this is a serious breach of protocol. So I offer, I will try to reach Masha." I call Masha, do not get an answer. Look at the guys and state the obvious. Something is seriously wrong back in America. Tom says, I am going to direct the pilot to change the course. We will land someplace a little distant and work our way slowly back to Jennifer's cabin. Flashback, Ben, in Moscow. I was eating the great meal that Tatiana brought me after I thought I had really screwed things up and would never see her again. But something wasn't quite right. Tatiana was as nervous as a cat in a room full of rocking chairs, which is something I'd never observed in her before, other than the time when Elena pulled the gun on her and Masha. Yeah, something wasn't right. No, that's not right either. Something was familiar. I studied the plate, and it looked familiar as hell. When I looked closely at the piece of chocolate for dessert, I finally figured it out. I'd eaten this exact same meal before with Jack and Masha at her place, and recognized Masha's Lomonosov china. I especially recognized the heart-shaped chocolate dessert because Jack was proud as hell when he bought them for Masha and then bragged about it for the whole damn day. The problem I had was, what the hell good was this information? It wasn't like I could do anything with it. If I said anything to Tatiana, it would make things even worse than they were earlier in the day. For once I took the smart path, didn't say anything about my discovery, finished the meal, smiled at Tatiana, and thanked her profusely. Thanks, honey, that was a great meal. I especially liked the chocolate for dessert. She got a gleam in her eyes and said, your dessert is not finished yet. I not so truthfully reminded her, honey, I hate to tell you this, but after Svetlana's abuse of me today, I wanted to add, and the lie about the food, but knew better. What I would really like is something not too strong for pain, and then to go to sleep. Her mouth dropped open slightly in surprise, then she quickly recovered and answered, yes, Ben, I understand. I will leave and get you some pain medicine immediately. I was thankful as hell when she left, since I sure as hell didn't like the game she was playing. Plus, for some other reason which I couldn't fathom, I really didn't want sex tonight. It might be because of my other plans. Flashback, Tatiana, in Moscow. I was very shocked, as this was the first time that Ben hadn't wanted sex, and I was worried. Hundreds of concerns flashed across my mind. Perhaps Ben was correct, Svetlana's therapy was too intense. Or perhaps Ben was getting sick. Or perhaps even the worst fear of all, he was growing tired of me. I forced myself to maintain my professional demeanor, went to the nurse's station, signed out a moderately strong analgesic, and returned to Ben's room. I was shocked when I arrived because he was already asleep. I returned the narcotic to the nurse's station, made sure the head nurse witnessed me signing it back in, and then I called Masha. Masha answered the phone, and I began. Flashback, Masha, in Moscow. I had just finished making the salad for Jack and served it to him. I was extremely grateful to Ben for broaching the subject of Jack's weight gain because it saved me from having to discuss the weighty situation with Jack. I sat down, across from Jack, to eat a salad of my own when I received a phone call. I left the table to answer the phone, determined it was from Tatiana, and listened as she frantically said, Masha, Ben didn't want me for dessert, and I don't understand the situation. I questioned, not even after you gave him the plate of food and told him you cooked it? My curiosity was aroused when it took a moment too long before she informed me. No, Masha. He thanked me for the food and the dessert. I told him dessert wasn't over yet, began to take off my nurse's uniform, and he told me that after the physical therapy today, all he wanted was something mild for pain and to sleep. I went to the nurse's station, checked out a mild analgesic, and returned to the room only to find he was already asleep. I did not like the sound of this, so I pondered her actions for a few moments. My concern was because I did not prepare the dessert she mentioned, so I questioned, what was the dessert which Ben thanked you for? Tatiana took even longer to reply, and then confessed, Masha, I am sorry, but I took one of the heart-shaped chocolates that Jack gave you for Ben's dessert. I rushed to my cabinets, checked the contents, and determined that Tatiana used one of my Lomonosov china plates, so I had a good idea what had occurred. I controlled my emotions as I lied to Tatiana. Tatiana, I am not sure what is going on. However, Jack and I are eating dinner, and I will discuss it with him and call you back later. I came back to the table as Jack glared and complained. Flashback, Jack, in Moscow. I could tell that Tatiana once again called Masha, but this was right in the middle of dinner, and I hate having dinner interrupted. While this wasn't one of Masha's greatest meals, it was my fault for asking her to help me lose weight, and I could tell she spent a hell of a lot of time making this salad edible. She came back to the table, and I asked, I could tell that was Tatiana. What the hell did Ben do this time to piss her off? Masha answered, Jack, I don't think it was Ben this time. I think it was Tatiana. I sighed, played with my salad, and complained, hell no? Don't tell me she started messing things up too. Masha smiled at me and asked, Jack, I'm going to describe what happened and would like to know if you think Ben might have determined what actions we took. Masha told me how she gave Tatiana the French meat meal she had made for me. It impressed me even more that she was able to make this damn fine salad so fast. Tatiana told Ben she made it herself, took it to Ben on one of Masha's fine china plates, and had also included This really pissed me off, one of the chocolate hearts that I had bought for Masha. I finished off the last bite of my salad and was actually, and surprisingly full. I looked at Masha and answered, Ben is sharp as hell, and he certainly figured out exactly what happened. If you remember, he ate the same meal here before on your china plates, but what really clinches the deal is her taking one of the chocolate hearts I gave you. I showed those to Ben and bragged about them, so I know he would remember those. Masha looked sad and asked the next logical question, Jack, what do you think Ben will do about this? I shook my head and answered, Tatiana really screwed up when she lied to Ben. That was the worst possible thing she could do. Let me go and explain to Ben what happened tomorrow, and I might be able to fix things. Masha told me, Jack, I would be eternally grateful. Then she gave me a preview of what eternally grateful was, and it almost made the cluster shit the women created worth it. However, my mood was ruined when she got out of bed to call Tatiana. Flashback, Ben, in Moscow. I successfully tricked Tatiana into believing I was asleep. So with her out of the way tonight, I waited impatiently for them to arrive. Hell, I was just as impatient as Tatiana was nervous earlier. I began to write 2 of the hardest letters I had ever written in my life, put them in separate envelopes, and continued to wait. My whole plan would be ruined if Tatiana came back. Finally, they arrived, and I began to implement my plan. Flashback, Glenn, at the military hospital. I couldn't believe the email Jennifer showed me. She had always complained about that boy trying to do things with her, but I assumed it was because of her silly infatuation with someone else. I wondered why he kept showing up at every piece of shit ballet school we took Jennifer to. Now I knew why. The little scumsucker was stalking her. Jennifer continued her complaints. Daddy, I asked Katie for a new bed, but she said they couldn't give me one. I wanted to swear but decided to save my wisdom for those that deserved it, and answered, Don't worry, Jennifer. You are going to get a new bed and much more. Stay right here while I take care of this. I stormed out of her hospital room, stomped up to the nurse's station, and ordered, I want to see the head nurse on duty tonight immediately. If she's not here in less than 10 minutes, I will have all of you reassigned to someplace so cold you will never get warm again. That lit a fire under their collective butts, and they began to page the head nurse. Jennifer's nurse came up and inquired, Sir, what seems to be the problem? I glared at her, controlled my natural impulse to deck her butt, and demanded, Did my Jennifer show you the pictures that scumsucker boy sent her? She had a concerned look and answered, Yes, sir, she did. I continued, And did she request a new bed because of what transpired on her bed? She gulped and answered, Yes, she did. I barked, Attention. Excuse me. How did you just address me? She snapped to attention, and I could see the fear in her eyes as she corrected herself. Yes, sir. She did. I left her standing at attention as the head nurse ran up. I recognized her as soon as she arrived. She noticed Katie standing at attention and was smart enough to come up, snap to attention, salute me, and then ask, Permission to speak, sir? I glared at both of them and ordered, Keep your mouth shut and remain at attention. While I was waiting for Betty, the head nurse, I had come up with a plan. I left them standing there, walked back into Jennifer's room, became even more pissed since she was sitting on the floor, and asked, Jennifer, how old is your friend Megan? Jennifer told me. I walked back outside and was glad to see that both Betty and Katie were where I left them. I then walked across in front of them far enough away so they couldn't hear me, took out my mobile phone, and called the J. Thank God he was still in the hospital. I apprised him of a situation with Jennifer, and he said he'd be right up. I walked over in front of Betty, uncomfortably close as a matter of fact, and confronted her. Were you aware that the bed in my daughter's room was used for a sexual tryst between a boy and another girl? She answered correctly. Permission to speak, sir? I answered, You have permission to answer my direct questions only. She answered, Sir. I was not aware of this fact, and I certainly do not condone such an act. I barked at her. Nurse, restrain your answers to my direct questions only. My daughter Jennifer informed her nurse over here, Katie, of the fact and requested a new bed because hers was soiled. Katie informed my daughter it was impossible to give her a new bed. Betty looked like she was going to speak, but I glared at her and watched as she bit her lip. The JA ran up, quickly analyzed the situation, and said, Sir, I arrived as quickly as possible, but the elevators in this hospital are a joke. And sir, I believe I have a plan to rectify this situation. I smiled at him and said, That's great news because if we cannot rectify this problem to the satisfaction of my daughter, I'm going to be reassigning personnel to Thule starting with these 2 nurses. He requested, Sir, might I have a word with you in private? We moved to the side of the room. He described his plan and I congratulated him. That is an awesome plan. Let me know what you need to implement it. He smiled at me and answered, Sir, thank you for the compliment. This is a serious matter, needs to be handled in a serious way, and if you do not mind, I would like to handle this myself. I reminded him, only as long as my daughter is kept absolutely safe. He gave me his assurance that she would be totally safe. Then he walked over in front of Betty and Katie and informed them, I am declaring the bed in the room of General Donaldson's daughter evidence in a criminal matter. I will have MPs take custody of the bed and control its chain of evidence. You will provide her with a new bed immediately. Betty explained their lack of immediate response. Sir, the general ordered us to stand at attention. I ordered, move your butts and get that new damn bed. They took off like their butts were on fire. 4 MPs came up, 2 covered Jennifer's bed with a plastic cover and took it out of her room while the other 2 waited. Jennifer watched everything and finally asked. Flashback, Jennifer, at the military hospital. Wow. I could hear Daddy yelling at the nurses in my room with the door closed. I was sure glad he never yelled at me like that. Then he walked into the room. With the JA, I still didn't like him, and 4 MPs. They covered my nasty bed with plastic and 2 of them took it out of the room. I looked at Daddy and asked, Daddy, what's going on? He smiled at me and answered, Jennifer, the JA will explain this to you since it's his plan. As the JA began to explain his plan, I began to feel a little better about him. However, he was still a lawyer. I couldn't believe what he asked me to do and wasn't sure I could do it. He smiled at me, as he always did. Then he helped me write the email. We sent it and waited. Flashback, Alexei at home. Mom came back to the car with a shopping bag. I peeked inside and asked, Did you forget my milk bones? She replied, No, Alexei, you're not a dog, so I didn't buy you milk bones. Not wanting to escalate things, I let it go. When we got home, Dad opened the door, and it was time to put my new plan into action. As Chow Mein, our Siamese cat, trotted over to greet us, I began to growl. I really disliked that cat anyway. She stared at me, confused. Then, I barked and lunged toward her. Chow Mein gave me a look of utter disbelief. When I kept barking and moving forward, she finally realized I was serious. Her back arched, she hissed, and then she bolted under the couch. I dropped onto all fours, circling the couch, barking the whole time. Out of the corner of my eye, I glanced at my parents. Their shocked expressions were priceless. Finally, Mom scolded. Alexei, what are you doing? I stood up, looked at her, and said, I'm just playing with Chow Mein like always. Have you forgotten? Maybe I've been away too long. I knew I had pushed all of Mom's buttons just right. She adored that cat more than anything. Her mouth dropped open as Dad quickly stepped in. Alexei, come to your room with me. I protested, but I haven't even nipped at Chow Mein's tail yet. You know how much she loves that. Mom looked like she was about to explode while Dad hurried me to my room. Once inside, he sighed and suggested, Alexei, it's been a long day. Why don't you rest while I heat up the pelmeni? I smiled at Father and answered, Thank you, Father, that is an excellent suggestion. I turned around 3 times and lay on the floor. Father merely muttered as he left my room. Flashback, Mira and Ira, in Israel. Ira, I say Ira because she had totally abandoned the role of Dr. Watson, countered, Mira, if you do not release the role of Sherlock Holmes to my corporeal self, I will retrieve the role forcibly. It was time for me to temporarily relinquish my characterization of Sherlock Holmes, so I accepted the challenge. If you assume that is even a remote possibility, then I welcome the confrontation. Safia sprinted out of the room. I dropped back into a defensive position and Ira began to circle me. She falsely surmised, Mira, do not force me to injure you. I laughed in her face. Irina Sedankina. The time has long since been completed when you could best me in a fight. Then I applied the Materazzi effect, the strategic use of anger in competitive interactions. Named after Marco Materazzi, an Italian soccer, football, player who angered rival Zinedine Zidane enough to get him ejected from the World Cup final in 2006. With a taunt, you are just jealous because I am the superior Sherlock Holmes. I recognized Myra's apropos application of the Materazzi effect and decided to table the turns with an insult of my own. Mira, it is your portrayal of Sherlock Holmes that elicited the mirthfulness in both Safia and Akam. Your continued reliance on the insipid and idiotic hat has made you the stock of laughing of the entire domicile. I was surprised when my Materazzi effect elicited an immediate attack from Mira. It was such a great surprise, she actually landed a blow to my cheek before I properly defended myself. Mira continued her taunts. Now who is the stock of laughing? I prepared to reply when we were rudely interrupted by Akam. Akam walked into the room, noticed our confrontation and stammered, excuse me, but Safia said you wanted to see me. Mira glared at him and began, you bulbous, behemoth baboon. I continued, be gone or be beaten. Akam emitted a scream akin to a juvenile female and translocated from the room in such haste his behemoth rolls of fat flapped akin to the ears of a long-eared saluki, with its head external to a moving vehicle. This set both of us to mirthfulness when Mira evilly suggested, Ira, It appears Safia has left the BB gun of retribution in her haste to depart. I gleaned her thoughts and completed the thought. Shall we acquire it and assist Akam in his flight? Mira acquired the gun, and I yelled, "Come Sherlock, the game is afoot." Sherlock replied indignantly, "Dr. Watson, that is my line." Flashback, Safia, in Israel. After I made it out of the library in time and sent Akam into the room and into certain punishment, I located a good hiding place where I could watch the action. Yes, I know it was mercenary of me, but better to punish Akam than myself. Besides, after bribing the cook and attempting to bribe me, he deserved whatever he got from the girls. I was disappointed when he ran from the room screaming like a little girl and almost left my hiding place when Mira and Ira charged from the room, chasing Akam with the BB gun. There was only one problem. If I stayed where I was, I couldn't see the action. So once the twins passed me, I slipped out of my hiding place and scurried behind them. Flashback, Mira and Ira, in Israel. We gained on our adversary, and I openly speculated to Dr. Watson, "Watson, I feel I have just had a mental awakening." Dr. Watson responded, "Pray do tell me, Sherlock." I replied with a question, "Watson, who is our primary archenemy?" Watson stated, "Sherlock, why do you ask, since we both know it is the evil and nefarious Professor James Moriarty?" I informed her, "Watson, I do believe he has been residing with us beneath our nasal appendages. He is none other than Akam." Watson gasped, "Sherlock, once again your powers of deductive reasoning baffle me." My tympanic units detected a sound behind us, and I informed, "Dr. Watson, it appears we have acquired a tail." Dr. Watson turned and supplied the answer, "Sherlock, do not concern yourself. It is merely our primary Baker Street irregular." Flashback, Safia, in Israel. Oh boy, if I heard right, this was going to be more fun than ever. The twins had decided that Akam was their enemy, Professor James Moriarty. I was sure that a serious interrogation session was coming once they captured him. In some ways, I felt a little badly about it, but in other ways, he deserved it for bribing the cook and trying to bribe me. The twins caught him as he reached the quarters of the young girls, his soon-to-be wives, and I couldn't believe what happened next. Flashback, Todd, on the island. Lou understood what was going to happen to the new bunch of female prisoners, probably better than anyone else, because she was likely one of them at one time. She also realized if we were to free the women, we needed more effective weapons than the bows, which the masked men were able to defeat by blocking the arrows with their armored forearms. She motioned for me to follow her. I trailed her to a new cave, which was loaded with weapons. She motioned to me, and I began to gear up, first with a pre-assembled tactical vest loaded with extra magazines and grenades. Then I strapped on a sidearm with many extra magazines and grabbed a rifle from the rack. Lou had done the same, except that she picked up 2 rifles and motioned for me to take another one. I grabbed a second rifle and slung it over my back. Then we moved out, again so silently it was eerie. The lack of sound was deafening, even though we were loaded with all the gear to free the new prisoners. I wasn't sure what the plan was, but I knew there was no way in hell I would let anything happen to those women. Present, Ben, Destiny, and Ivan, at the cabin, about a week later. I smile at Destiny as we watch the greenies start packing up and preparing to leave. Then I assumed the ready position behind my ever-faithful Barrett 50 caliber, because I'm concerned they are going to try to take the hostage Marines with them. That would earn them another, but whoopin'. They begin by cutting the Marines loose and letting them just stand there. They next roll Yentz out of the CSH and begin to tear it down. Destiny comments, "Ben, you should be happy since you've won." Once I realize they aren't taking Yentz or any of the other Marines away, I move away from the Barrett, grin at her, and correct her statement, "No, we won. You were as much a part of this as anyone else. I couldn't have done this without your help." She smiles and continues, "And you accomplished all this without killing any special forces or even Mike." My grin turns to a frown while I complain, "Yeah, the greenies didn't even deserve the shit I gave them, but Mike is still a different story." Ivan excitedly interrupts, "Unca Ben shoot helicopters again, like times many before?" I grin at Ivan and answer, "We'll let them go this time because the bad men need them to leave." Ivan frowns and continues, "Too bad. I like seeing the smoke and fire from the helicopters when you shoot them. Unca Ben, you and Lady really puff and huff and blow the bad men away." We both chuckle at one of Ivan's favorite sayings, then Destiny comments, "Ivan, we will finally be able to take you to your mother and father." Ivan begins to fidget and asks, When we go? When we go?" Destiny holds his hand and answers, "Once all the bad men leave in the helicopters, we will take you to your mother and father." I correct her again, "Destiny, you mean you will be able to take Ivan to his mother and father?" Ben's last answer concerns me, so I inquire, "Ben, what are you talking about?" Ben gives me the answer I was afraid he would give me. "Destiny, I'm not taking Ivan to Jack and Masha. You're going to do that. My job here is over, and I need to get out of here." I have been arguing with Ben this last week on how he needs to reconnect with Jennifer. But the harder I've argued, the more resistant he's become. I complain, but I thought we were leaving together? Ben laughs and states a fact. Destiny. We both know that you can take Ivan to Jack and Masha and still catch up with me with no real effort on your part. That fact is true. I could give him several days head start and still catch up with him. I grin at Ben and challenge. So does this mean you believe I am a shaman? He laughs and answers, I don't know what the hell you are, so I'm not saying you're a shaman. And I'm not saying you're not a shaman. It's my turn to complain. Ben, you should become a politician. Ben glares at me and whines. That's one of the worst insults you could give me. We watch as some of the released Marines walk over to Jennifer. Next, the last of the special forces board the helicopter. It starts up and they are gone. I smile at Ivan, who has been the best boy he could be this week, and say, let's take you to your mother and father. Ivan takes off running down the hill as I turn to Ben and promise, I will see you in a few days. He grins and answers, we will see about that. If you can find me, then I might actually believe you are a shaman. As Ivan and I run down the hill, I see Stacy Summers, her 2 horses, and the bear I had met earlier in the week. They are also near Jennifer. Ivan begins to yell, Mama, Papa. I see his parents begin to run toward him and know he will be fine, so I divert toward Jennifer. Present, Jens, Stacy, and Destiny, at the cabin, about a week later. I can't believe it. The special forces roll me out of the CSH, then began to disassemble the whole thing. The doctor who was treating me comes over and advises, Ms. Donaldson, we have to leave, however you should be fine until you can get more treatment. I turn my head and notice not just the CSH is being disassembled, the whole camp is virtually gone, and the special forces are loading into the repaired helicopters. I say repaired because my Ben began blowing the hell out of the Chinooks every time they landed. I guess he raised enough hell with them, they finally called it quits. Some of the Marines who have been released gather around me. Then a woman rides up on a pinto pony and shouts an order. I want my medic over here to take care of Jennifer Donaldson immediately. She looks a little familiar, but I'm not sure where I've seen her before. She gets off the horse, comes over to me, and introduces herself. Jennifer Donaldson. I am Stacy Summers, and I am partially responsible for getting the scumsucker Mike and the special forces to leave. Now, how are you feeling? Now I know who the hell she is. She's the girl that Ben traveled with for a short time in Texas. I glare at my antagonist and demand, first, what are you doing on my land? And second, what the hell do you mean you are partially responsible for the special forces leaving? She smiles at me and replies, Jennifer Donaldson, I am not here to compete with you, and I hope we can be friends. I came here because you needed help. Some of you were trapped in the tunnels, and I brought in the crew to excavate the tunnels. I do want to apologize for enabling Mike to take advantage of my efforts to capture you and the others in the tunnels. I simply didn't realize how ruthless he was. Now, to answer your second question, I made a lot of calls to Washington and even put my government contracts with the military in jeopardy to force them to recall the special forces to Fort Carson. She continues with her smile, holds out her hand and asks, so what about it? Can we be friends? I remember something my father taught me about keeping friends close and enemies even closer, so I fake a smile, shake her hand and offer, thank you for all your help. Jennifer's handshake and smile seemed a little too practiced to me. Then I figured it out. The sneaky bitch was doing to me exactly what I was doing to say. Yes, she was keeping me closer. Samantha runs over and asks, Stacy, it's good to see you again. Were you able to complete your mission? Shit, I wish she hadn't asked me that. I prepared to reply not no, but hell no, which isn't a lie. We never did catch Ben. When we are interrupted while Wojciech yowls and takes off like his butt is on fire. Then Patches and Bo become very skittish. They did this before a couple times when we were looking for Ben, and I didn't really understand their reaction. Then I notice a beautiful lady walking toward us. She has the most incredible hair I have ever seen, literally flowing down to her waist. It literally glows in the sunshine. She walks up, looks at Jennifer, and tells her, Ben sends us all his love to you. I have to fight laughing when I walk near Jennifer, Stacy, and Samantha. The bear recognizes me, even in my human form, yowls, and runs away. And the 2 horses also recognize me, and are uncomfortable. Yes, this isn't the first time we met since I had confronted the 3 of them several times when they were tracking Ben. A well-timed snarl, and making the hair on my back stand up was enough to send the bear running. I had contemplated what to say to Jennifer when we first met and decided to tell her the truth, no matter how hard it would be for her to accept. She glares at me and angrily confronts me. What the hell would you know about Ben? And if he loved me, he would be here right now. I smile at her and explain, I have been helping Ben for almost a month. First, I helped him to know what was happening here. Then I helped to get him here, and I finally helped him to fight the special forces. And while he isn't here with you right now, I can assure you he most certainly still loves you very deeply. Jennifer looks me over and scoffs. That's funny since you sure don't look like a warrior. And if Ben still loves me, he has a funny way of showing it. I laugh and counsel, you of all people should know better than to judge a book by its cover. And I was there encouraging Ben to connect to you. Stacy interrupts, so you're telling me you're the one that helped Ben and were part of the team we heard the special forces complaining about? Jennifer interrupts with a question. Wait, you've heard about her? Stacy answers, well, I've heard many things about the person that was helping Ben, but I can't believe it was her. I finally get a chance to answer. Yes, it was me, and I can show you Ben's bunkers to prove it. That reminds me, someone needs to go into the bunker and turn off the GPS jammer and the Spectrum Warfare module before they arrive. I can tell Jennifer still doesn't believe me when she glares at me and demands, who the hell are they? I nod at Stacy and answer, Stacy hired a contracting firm to come and repair the entrances to the tunnels and to start to repair the cabin. She also has temporary trailers coming to be used as housing while the repairs are completed. Stacy almost explodes as she demands, how in the hell did you know all that? It's a secret. My plan works as Jennifer begins to argue with Stacy. I notice some people approaching that I don't want to encounter, so I say, you two can work out the details between yourselves as I need to be leaving. By the way, you need to be very careful because Mike left some traps for Ben and me. Make sure not to use the porta potties and be careful with the tunnel entrances and the entryways into the house. I turn and quickly walk away before they arrive. I once again fight laughter as I notice the bear watching me from his hiding place under a pine tree. Present, Mike, in hiding, about a week later. Son of a bitch. I knew it was going to be bad when the stupid captain let Stacy Summers escape, but I never in my wildest dreams thought it would be this bad. This mission wasn't just the worst mission I had ever commanded. It was an embarrassment right from the start. Not only did we never even get close to capturing Ben and his accomplice, they continued to wage what was the most perfect textbook example of guerrilla warfare anyone had ever seen. And the scumsuckers did it without killing a single Special Forces soldier. You know about all he had already done. Well, that was just a start. The patrols searching for him ran into more improvised traps than Carter had little pills. They were ingenious as hell, and I swear Ben must have had many more troops than just the two of them. There were the typical punji pits, many deadfalls, tree branch traps designed to injure knees, and a host of things we had never seen before. We took pictures of all of them after the troops were injured in hopes we could avoid them the next time. And the scumsucker kept on playing his damn games with the porta potties, so every time you went in one to piss or shit you never knew what was going to happen. One time he inserted tiny nails into the bottom side of the toilet seats, so the points barely broke the surface of the seat. Then he wired the scumsuckers to some Rube Goldberg capacitive discharge system he cobbled together from some car parts and scrap shit. When you sat on the seat, which I unfortunately did, it shocked the hell out of you. Hell, I still had the burn marks on my butt because I couldn't feel it and it kept shocking me until I wondered what the burning smell was. It was me because my butt was on fire, literally. Another time after I had a private check my shitter, I went inside. The toilet seat rose up like it was saluting me and the damn porta potty played Hail to the Chief. There were of course the flashbang tricks many times over, but the absolute worst was when I had made sure to have my damn porta potty checked, went inside, and immediately after I sat down found the scumsucker rigged it to tip over on the door. It was worse than the flashbangs. Hell, I was literally swimming in shit. Of course we posted round-the-clock guards, but it didn't do any good because he still got in them and screwed with them, and it wasn't always the same on each porta potty. It was so demoralizing we finally gave up on using the porta potties and dug a field latrine. If you have never tried using a field latrine when you can't use your legs, I can tell you it's nigh unto impossible. Once he effectively removed the porta potties from service, the scumsucker put something into our water supply that gave us all explosive shits. 1 minute the men would be fine, then they would be running for the field latrine like their butts were on fire, many times not making it in time. It was worse for me because I couldn't feel anything and would just shit in my pants. Hell, what took months to train my bowels to void on a schedule, and he undid my best efforts with his evil concoction in one day. It was so bad that I was forced once again to wear diapers. With the explosive shits, the men and I were forced to change our BDUs frequently, and somehow the scumsucker figured a way to narcotic our BDUs with something that made us all itch worse than poison ivy. We were living in hell, and it was so bad at the end that the CSH had more troops in it than were available for patrols. To top it all off, he decided to blow the engine out of every damn helicopter that came to our base with his .50 caliber Barrett, essentially trapping us here. He was smart as hell because he always waited until they landed, except for the time we tried to rope some fresh troops in. Then he blew the hell out of the back rotor and caused the helicopter to crash. The expense of repairing and replacing the helicopters and the damn news reports from the bitch Stacy Summers, she was now on my shit list too, were the final straw. The brass caught wind of my mission, immediately canceled it, and demanded that I return to DC. I knew better than to go back, because my butt would be grass if I did that. So instead I was on the lam, but not before I left a few surprises for Ben and his accomplice to find. Present, Todd, Mira, Ira, and Alexei, about a week later. I can't believe our situation as I watch Ira, Mira, and Alexei engage in the water fight from hell. It is so intense it chases all the other patrons out of the pool. I knew the girls were competitive, but Alexei is just as competitive as them and is doing quite well at holding his own. The waiter comes up to the table, sets down our food, and I put my fingers in my mouth to whistle. The three of them stop, see the food, navigate toward the side of the pool, and every male in the place watches as the twins climb out of the pool. It must be the bikinis they are wearing and the fact that they truly are stunning women. Ira is the first to arrive at the table, kisses me on the cheek, and says, "I cannot believe that Mike arranged for us to stay in this hotel." Alexei remarks, "Yes, the Broadmoor Hotel is a world-renowned 5-star resort. We are fortunate to be staying here." Only Myra's sour attitude spoils our lunch when she says, "While all others might be able to enjoy this frivolity, I cannot get the thoughts of my Ben out of my mind." I question if Mike has apprehended him and speculate on various devious ways he is torturing my Ben. Alexei and my sister Ira attack the food with gusto while I play with mine and complain I have no hunger pains to assuage. Ira chides me, "Miranda, stop being a silly girl." Mike had not captured Ben before we left, and he had little chance of capturing him after we left. You do not realize Mike made an extreme tactical blunder by removing us from the battlefield. I tease with a song-sing voice. Yes, I know Mike should have used us and the Jennifer Donaldson female Saluki as bait in a trap, because that is what we would have done. But I cannot remove the image from my mind that he has apprehended my Ben and is subjecting him to rigorous tortures. My sister Mira is in an extremely depressed mood, one which seems impervious to logic. I look around and suggest, perhaps we could flee this 5-star prison? Todd shakes his head negatively and signs. That would be very unwise because I have detected that we are still under observation. Ira almost sickens me with her praise of Todd, and I make a note to myself to never become emotionally ensnared with a female. We are fortunate to have the ever-watchful Todd here with us to keep us from rash acts. We continue our repast until the hotel manager arrives and informs. Present, Zarika and Yasmin escape a week later. Our plans to take a taxi to our Ben's cabin failed miserably since the fuzz had posted pictures of us, and instead of escaping in the taxi, we were, as Yasmin said, picked up by the fuzz. They charged us with many things that I did not understand, and the stupid Ms. Horning came and took us away. This time they put us both in the same terrible place, but it was worse than ever because we were in what was called solitary confinement. We spent all day in a small cell with no windows and were only released for 30 minutes a day. But even then we were not allowed to see each other. It reminded me of the time before Ben rescued me, but without the constant assaults. So in that respect it was not that bad since it was only a mild repeat of a bad experience. I resolved to exercise so that if I ever met Ben again, he would be proud of me. The previous trip to this hospital was terrible because of the evil men, but this torture was almost worse. We were locked into tiny rooms with nothing to do. There were no books that I could read. They were all in English, and my English was not that good yet. And worst of all, no television. Plus, they constantly interviewed me about what happened at the hospital with the mean man and the bad nurse. I knew that Zarika would not tell them anything, and I, of course, would not tell them anything. Even when they lied and told me Zarika told them it was me or offered me rewards. I would not betray my first wife no matter how long they continued this torture. Present, Tom, Byron, and Inga, back in America, about a week later. I was pissed as hell when I found out that SIFs folded and ran away like a bunch of babies when the going got tough. I had been arguing with the scumsuckers for almost a week. They refused to provide support even after I reminded them of the contributions Jennifer had made, and I was ready to pack it in with them. Finally, there was a break. Near as we could determine, Ben handed the greenies there, and sent them packing. It was embarrassing for me, being a former greenie, but not as embarrassing as what the greenies had been doing under the leadership of the scumsucker Mike, who like a typical spook disappeared. Byron stated. I grinned at Tom, because I recognized his discomfort over how Ben kicked the greenies' butt, and told both of them, well, now that the greenies have been dispatched, we can head back to the cabin. Tom glared at me and defended his precious greenies. That's what happens when a civilian spook tries to command a company of Army Special Forces, especially a spook that was a Marine. I didn't miss the sarcasm in his voice, and now it was my turn to defend the Corps. I'm not so sure that Mike was ever a Marine. Many feel he was always a spook, and besides, if he was really a Marine, he would have tried to use the Marines instead of the Army. However, he knew better because the Marines wouldn't have put up with his bullshit. Even with all Ben has done, he's still a well-respected Marine. Inga giggles, and we both look at her as she says. I laugh at Byron and Tom and state, I love your inter-forces rivalry. However, you both complain about that SIF's wasting time when we are doing the same. Shall we now travel to Ben's cabin? Tom corrects me, you mean Jennifer's cabin. I dismissively wave my hand and say, whatever you wish. Just remember, I am touching your six. Tom glares at me and complains, when are you ever going to get that phrase correct? It's cover my six. I secretly want to get to the cabin to meet up with Masha, as we have many things to discuss. Flashback, Ben, in Moscow. My guests finally arrived. I jumped up out of the wheelchair. That's right. While at first I couldn't walk, now my legs weren't perfect, but they sure as hell were functional. Hugged Yuri and asked, did you get everything I asked for? He hugged the hell out of me, pulled away, and replied, yes, Ben, we did, and it is good to see you walking again. Are you sure you want to go through with this? You must know your major is returning today, and do you realize our officers are going to hate you for this? I grinned at him and answered, screw all of the Russian officers. And he's not my major, he's a big pain in the butt. I've never been surer of this in my life. If I do not get out of here now, I will never be able to leave to complete my mission. I changed into the Spetsnaz uniform Yuri brought me, noticed the rank, and complained like hell. Yuri, what the hell are you doing making me a captain? Yuri and all the other Spetsnaz laughed as he answered, Ben, if you are an officer there will be less problems for you, because fewer soldiers will question your actions. Then Yuri handed me a large envelope. I took the contents and divided it between the two envelopes that contained the letters I'd written earlier, and Yuri remarked, I still cannot believe you were able to trick the nurses and the doctors about the current condition of your legs. I grinned and answered, hell, I had been practicing this for almost a week, and it was easy. The biggest problem was the new damn physical therapist they brought in today. She kept giving me funny looks during therapy, and I was sure she figured it out, but she did not say anything. I walked around and made sure to shake Yuri's and the other Spetsnaz hands. Yuri grinned at me, so I questioned, what the hell is the grin for? Yuri leaned in closely and answered, Ben, we have the other item you requested, but we're not sure you will like it. It's downstairs in the Kozlik, literally goat, the UAZ 469 or Russian equivalent to the Jeep. We borrowed for you, along with the intel regarding the Chechen scumsuckers' last known positions. After his explanation, I understood the grin, returned it with one of my own, and stated, Yuri, what's not to like about it? It will be awesome. Did any of our men try it? Yuri shook his head and explained, we asked everyone, and they all refused. I guess no one is as crazy as you. He handed me another large manila envelope. I opened it, looked inside, and discovered it was full of documents, so I questioned, what the hell is all of this shit? Yuri shook his head and asked, Ben, have you forgotten where you are? Inside of this is a forged Russian passport. Make sure you memorize your name and travel orders which will allow you to travel anywhere in Russia. I had forgotten that and realized I would have been stopped and captured at the first checkpoint without them. I vigorously shook his hand and thanked him. Damn, thank you very much. In my hurry to leave, I forgot all about this. Then I looked around the room at the other men, my comrades, and stated, just remember, if I do get caught, as far as I am concerned, none of you were ever here. I prepared to leave, and Yuri said, Ben, you are forgetting the most important thing. I blinked and replied, I can't think of a thing I'm forgetting. One of the men produced a bottle of vodka, and I understood. We hadn't sat and drank a shot for good luck before I left, a typical Russian tradition. Shot glasses appeared. Yuri filled them, stood up, and toasted, our comrade Ben. With this drink we all wish you good hunting. We all drank our shot, smashed the shot glasses in the corner, and shouted good hunting. Then we slipped out of the room as a group. Flashback, Tatiana, in Moscow. I finally gave up on sleeping as I had tossed and turned all night, and could not remove the concerns in my mind about Ben possibly growing tired of me, or even worse. And Masha's last call, before my ill-fated attempt at sleep, informed me that Ben probably knew I lied to him about cooking the meal. This just fueled the fires of my concerns. I replayed all of our interactions in my head and decided I had made too many mistakes in my relationship with Ben. The biggest being the lie about dinner, followed closely behind by how much of a bitch I had been to him. He deserved better than me. I resolved to beg Ben to forgive me, and I would promise him that I would never lie to him again and that I would not be him anymore. I went into my bathroom, looked at myself in the mirror, and was shocked. My face looked terrible from not sleeping last night and crying. It was bloated, and I had large black bags under my eyes. I must take care of this disaster before I go to see Ben. Thank God they hadn't turned off the hot water. Much of Moscow has centralized hot water plants, and the water is moved in large distribution pipes to the residences where it is used both for heat and personal hygiene. They turn it off several weeks out of the year to clean the plants and pipes. I took a long hot shower and let it run over my face. I wiped the steam from the mirror, looked at my face, and discovered it was still swollen. If the hot water didn't work, then it must require cold water. I went to the freezer, withdrew some ice, and began to ice my swollen face. After 10 minutes of this torture, I looked at my face in the mirror, and while it was still a little swollen, it was now acceptable except for the black bags under my eyes. Those I could deal with since a little extra makeup, I normally did not wear much, would cover them. I carefully applied my makeup in the perfect amount to cover the bags, but not make me look like the women Ben teased me about who wore too much makeup. He rudely called it war paint. Then I decided I needed something special under my uniform today to excite Ben, if he still loved me and forgave me. So I put on my best, most sexy, almost scandalous underwear, which cost me a month's salary. I brought out my best-fitting nurse's uniform, squeezed into it, zipped it up, checked myself in the mirror, and was happy with what I saw. Yes, I was now ready for the battle of winning Ben back. The trip to the hospital seemed to take forever in the Moscow metro, the subway system that runs mostly under Moscow, but I realized I was just nervous. We finally arrived at my stop. I fought my way out of the train, into the bustling crowd, and up the interminably long escalator. The Moscow metro is very deep and was designed to also serve as a fallout shelter. Park Pobdy is 84 meters below the ground, the height of a 28-story building. It also contains the longest escalators in Europe. Each one is 126 meters long and has 740 steps. The escalator ride to the surface takes approximately 3 minutes, to the street where I could breathe the fresh air of early morning. I wanted to run to the hospital but restrained myself so I didn't ruin my makeup and wrinkle my uniform. I even made a special stop on the way to the hospital and bought something I knew Ben would appreciate. I finally made it to the hospital, once again checked my makeup and outfit in the elevator mirrors, and was happy with what I saw. I entered Ben's room and was shocked that he wasn't in bed. After recovering from my initial surprise, I saw 2 envelopes. I opened the one addressed to me and couldn't believe what it said when I opened it. I needed to call Masha. Flashback, Masha, in Moscow. Oh my head, what is that? Jack nudged me and muttered, Masha, the phone. I glanced at the clock beside the bed and swore to myself. Tvoya Matt, who in Hades was calling at this ungodly time, and why did I let Jack talk me into finishing the bottle of wine last night? And why then had we continued with a bottle of vodka? Each beat of my heart reverberated in my head like a big bass drum, and the infernal ringing of the phone clanged like fire bells in my mind. Jack nudged me again and groused, Masha, the damn phone is ringing. I began to jump out of bed. Tvoya Matt, where were my clothes? Then I remembered what and how many times Jack and I did what we did last night, and it made me feel better. Even though he was much older than me, his enthusiasm, passion, and endurance were unrivaled by any lover I had ever had. Jack complained once more, Masha, why aren't you speaking? Are you alive, and when in the hell are you going to answer the damn phone? I apologized. Sorry, Jack, my love. I was looking for my clothes or my robe. Jack then stated the obvious. Masha, we are the only 2 here. You don't need clothes or a robe. I was going to complain about it being cold, but decided Jack was right, so I jumped out of bed, dashed into the living room, and shivered while I answered the phone. A very upset and distraught Tatiana immediately cried, Masha, he is gone. My mind was still fuzzy as a result of the debauchery of last night, so I unfortunately felt it necessary to question, who is gone? Tatiana wailed loudly, which pained my throbbing head. Ben is gone. The news shocked my senses, and my mind slowly began to awaken. This did not sound right, so I questioned, what do you mean Ben is gone? How and where did he go? She continued to cry and answered, Masha, I have no idea. I came to his room to apologize to him, and it was empty. He left 2 letters, one addressed to me and one addressed to Jack. I opened mine, and Ben said he hoped I would forgive him, but he needed to leave and go take care of some business. He would return when he was finished. Tvoya Matt, what in Hades did Ben do now? I prepared to answer when I was interrupted. Flashback, Jack, in Moscow. Despite my groggy state, I tried to recall, how many times had our sleep been interrupted by Masha's late night and early morning phone calls? Too many to count. This nonsense had to stop. Since I was already awake, I decided to get up and use the bathroom. The moment I stepped out of the warm bed, I realized why Masha had wanted her robe. It was freezing in her apartment. That reminded me, I still needed to fix those drafty windows that let the heat escape like a sieve. After finishing in the bathroom, I figured I'd do something thoughtful and bring Masha her robe. I rummaged through the scattered clothes on the floor, smiling at the memory of the night before. We'd had a great time, and I was looking forward to many more like it after we got married. I finally found her robe and walked into the living room, only to see her on the phone. My heart practically stopped. She was absolutely stunning. I walked up behind her and wrapped my arms around her in an embrace. Masha quickly turned, pushed my hands away, covered the phone with one hand, and said, "Jack, not right now. We have an emergency. Ben is missing." I blinked a couple of times, then suddenly remembered what Ben had told me the day before. I swore under my breath. That crazy son of a bitch. I didn't think he was serious. Masha looked at me and demanded, "Jack, what in Hades are you talking about?" I quickly analyzed the situation and realized the storm that was coming if Masha was correct. I backed away from Masha, sat in a dining room chair, held my head in my hands and answered, "Ben told me what I thought was a bullshit story yesterday about how he was going to leave and kill the Chechen scumsuckers that attacked the school. I chalked it up to his bravado because he couldn't even walk, so how in the hell could he leave to go after the scumsuckers?" A rather strange emotion, one I had not seen before, crossed Masha's face as she took a deep breath and answered. Flashback, Masha, in Moscow. I was furious at Jack for not mentioning anything to me about Ben's plans. If we had been warned, we could have diverted the train wreck that was surely coming. I almost began to berate him for his negligence. Then I saw my robe in his hands, and his care and concern for me quickly changed my attitude, because no Russian man would have done such a thing. Besides, Jack looked to truly be in pain over the situation. I quickly told Tatiana, "We will be there as soon as possible, just don't do anything crazy." And since I was speaking in Russian and Jack could not understand, I added, "And that is an order." Tatiana still cried. "Masha, I understand, but I cannot help but feel this is my fault." I swore under my breath and answered, "Tatiana, that is the exact sort of crazy action I am referring to. Regain control of yourself, and we will be there soon." I hung up the phone, walked over to Jack, took my robe from him, put it on, gave him a huge kiss, and said, "Jack, my love, thank you for being so loving and caring to bring my robe to me." Jack shook his head, sighed, and confessed, "Shit, Masha, I never thought Ben would. No, I didn't know he could do such a thing. Hell, Masha, he can't even walk. What the hell does he think he's doing going after those scumsuckers by himself? He's probably going to get killed, and I will have that burden on my conscience forever." Boy, Matt, had everyone lost their minds other than me? Jack, my Jack, was in a terrible state that I had never witnessed before. I knew he loved Ben like a son, but there was no way this was my Jack's fault, and I needed to inform him of that. I answered, "Jack, now is not the proper time for these crazy thoughts, since there are more important things to deal with right now which might get Ben back before anything terrible happens." Jack looked at me and added to the burden, "You haven't heard the worst of it. Major Mike is coming back today." I thought for a moment and wondered if I could really pull this off. I smiled at Jack and affirmed, "Jack, you might not believe it, but his timing is perfect." Flashback, Jennifer, at the military hospital. We waited for seemed like for frickin' ever, and finally, I received a response to my email. I showed it to the stinking JA lawyer and asked, "So what do I need to do?" He gave me his darn smile again, but it was sort of growing on me, and answered, "Just sit on your new bed and let us know when he arrives." I was thankful as heck that I had a new bed, because I sure wouldn't have parked my behind on the old defiled nasty bed. I crawled up onto the bed, pulled up the blankets and waited, but I still wasn't sure this plan was going to work. The JA, 2 MPs, and Daddy waited in the bathroom. I was nervous as heck because of what the JA had me write to Ro frickin' Bear. He was a sneaky son of a gun, and I wasn't so sure he wouldn't figure out some way to escape. Finally, there was a knock on the door, and I asked, "Who is it?" Ro frickin' Bear answered, "Your lover is here." My hands sweat like crazy, and I tried to control my voice as I answered, "Come on in. I am anxiously waiting." He walked into the room, rushed over to the bed, ripped down the sheets, and stated, "I knew you would come to your senses sooner or later. Now, strip off those clothes so we can do the nasty." The JA, the 2 MPs, and Daddy sprang out of the bathroom. Ro frickin' Bear looked like he was going to poop in his pants as the JA announced, "Robert, you are being arrested for statutory assault and soliciting sex from an underage girl." He complained, "But I didn't do anything to her yet." The JA informed him, "Yes, but you did have sex with her friend Megan, who is also underage. Then you used the pictures to actively solicit sex from Jennifer." Ro frickin' Bear obviously lied as he said, "But Megan told me she was 18. The JA stated, "Ignorance of the law is no excuse. Megan is underage, which makes it statutory assault. Plus it was on a military base, which makes the crime even worse." Daddy even defended me when he added, "You can assume that this will reflect negatively on your father's career in the Marines. In fact, we might even reassign your whole family to someplace where I know you won't bother my daughter." The MPs put the handcuffs on Robert, and they and the JA left. Daddy walked up to my bed and apologized. "Jennifer, I am sorry I never believed you about that boy." I grinned at Daddy and answered, "That's okay, because I now know he will never bother me again." Daddy kissed me on the cheek and said, I'm going to go check on your mother. Sleep well. I was so happy. I wanted to dance, so I did that, and it lasted until Katie walked in and said, flashback, Alexei at home. I pretended to sleep on the floor like a dog until father opened the door and announced, Alexei, the pelmeni are ready. I sat up, began to perform a stretch like dogs do when they arise. Then I bounded past father to the kitchen and questioned, Father, where are my pelmeni? Father had a quizzical tone to his voice as he replied, they are on the table where you normally sit. I feigned a complaint, Father, I do believe I have been away from home too long since you have forgotten that I normally eat out of a bowl on the kitchen floor. His voice shook some as he stated, well, Alexei, just for tonight, why don't we let you eat at the table? I panted like a dog and answered, thank you, Father, that is a great honor, and I will try to not disappoint you. I came to the table, pretended to have some trouble figuring out how to sit in the chair, and then asked, Father, where is mother tonight? Don't you two usually eat dinner together? He looked a little frightened as he informed me, Alexei, she wasn't feeling well tonight, so I took her meal to her room. I asked the question I knew would push him over the edge, is Chow Mein with her? I never did get to bite her tail as she likes. He shook his head, looked at his food, and replied, yes, Alexei. Chow Mein is with your mother, and unfortunately you will not be able to bite her tail. Father rose from the table and I questioned, Father, where are you going? He replied, Alexei, I am no longer hungry. I panted again and asked, then could I have your pelmeni? He answered, since I'm not going to eat it, it is better than letting it go to waste. I jumped up from the table, grabbed his plate, ran into the kitchen, placed the plate on the floor, and began to eat it with my mouth like a dog. Father muttered to himself as he walked away. When I was done, I grabbed my plate from the table and finished it the same way. Then I came up with another great idea. Flashback, Mira and Ira, in Israel. We cornered the evil Professor James Moriarty external to the quarters which housed the remainder of the Baker Street irregulars. I trained the BB gun of retribution on him and declared, so, the most evil and nefarious Professor James Moriarty, you wrongly assumed you could deceive the mighty Sherlock Holmes? Dr. Watson assisted, and the ever-humble Dr. Watson. However, Sherlock has seen through your ruse and discerned your real identity. The evil and nefarious Professor James Moriarty stammered, no, wait, what? Mira and Ira, I am not Professor James Moriarty, I am Accomped. Look at me, do I resemble the description of Professor James Moriarty from the novels? I could not use my magnifying optic to discern how Professor James Moriarty constructed such a magnificent disguise because my digits were occupied with the BB gun of retribution. Our primary Baker Street irregular arrived, so I passed the BB gun of retribution to her and ordered, guard this man with your life. His escape could result in the termination of all our corporeal selves. I must oculate the professor to discern the machinations of his magnificent disguise. Then I took up my magnifying optic to discern the start and termination of Professor James Moriarty disguise. Sherlock oculated the evil Professor James Moriarty and required my assistance. Dr. Watson, being the medical man which you are, might you assist in discovering the machinations of Professor James Moriarty's disguise? I approached the evil professor, applied my walking stick to his bulbous rolls which promptly jiggled like jelly, and stated, Sherlock, it would appear the evil Professor James Moriarty, in his attempt to deceive us, found a plastic surgeon of ill repute to perform the heinous act of reverse suction lipoctomy to permanently disguise his shape. The evil Professor James Moriarty attempted to cast doubt upon my hypothesis when he stated, girls, come on, you both remember me. Once again, I am not Professor James Moriarty, I am Accomped. I clandestinely motioned to our primary Baker Street irregular. She understood and discharged the BB gun of retribution, which impacted the evil Professor James Moriarty in the bulbous folds of his artificially enlarged abdomen. He jumped and cried like a juvenile female. Then something surprising occurred. The remainder of the Baker Street irregulars charged from their rooms and confronted us. Flashback, Safia, in Israel. Oh boy, this was more fun than I even dreamed it would be. They finally had me fire the BB gun at Accomped. I shot him in the stomach. How could I miss something that big? And he screamed like a little girl. Then all hell broke loose when the young girls flew out of their rooms and confronted the three of us. The oldest and boldest girl got closer to Sherlock, Mira. Then I would have dared and yelled at her. What are you doing torturing our soon-to-be husband? I fought back laughter as Mira looked at her with a magnifying glass and replied, if you do not wish to lose your position as one of my Baker Street irregulars, you will immediately cease and desist your protection of the evil Professor James Moriarty. We have many questions for his corporeal self which, if he fails to answer correctly, could result in his death. When Accomped heard that threat, he redoubled his wailing, which further infuriated the young girls. The one in Myra's face attempted to slap her, which Mira naturally deflected. However, The other girls charged Mira and Ira. I quickly backed away to avoid the confrontation. I watched as Mira and Ira successfully parried the attacks of the young girls, and was impressed that they kept control of their emotions and didn't hurt any of them. Then Akam performed a most surprising act. Flashback, Todd, on the island. With the acquisition of our new weapons and Lou's expert jungle stealth training, the battle was over almost before it started. We would sneak up on the team of masked men, take out 2 of them, and then move before any others could respond. Yes, she was an expert at guerrilla tactics and knew the island better than the masked men. The last masked man tried to shield himself with one of the women, but it didn't matter. He left enough of himself exposed that I still took him out with an expert shot. Lou turned, looked at me, and smiled in obvious surprise and admiration. But now I had a larger question. What would we do with the women that we saved? As we approached them, they all displayed great fear. Lou began to speak softly with what I could only assume were comforting words to them. We finally came close enough that she could release them from their handcuffs. I was surprised as hell when one of the women present, Ben, leaving the cabin. It is good to be on the move again. Spending time at the cabin and connecting to Jens are some of the hardest things I have ever done. It reminds me of what should have been until Hussein screwed it up. Jens and I living out the rest of our lives at the cabin, surrounded by children and later grandchildren. To leave the cabin was to permanently leave that part of my life behind me and move on to other things. One part of leaving that part behind me is making it hard as hell for Destiny to find me. Yeah, I may have told Destiny she could find me, however I'm never going to lay down and roll over because I am a Marine. I already cleaned the Barrett and put it back in storage. Boy, I wish I could bring it with me, but where I am going, it is too heavy and impractical. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to bring a more versatile rifle with me. So I stopped by one of my weapons caches to swap my 5.56 M4 upper, which I had also cleaned and oiled, and tactical vest for AM4 upper in 7.62 by 35, 300 SC. The SAMI spec rounds similar to the 300 Whisper, Blackout, with a suppressor and a new tactical vest, which contains both subsonic and supersonic rounds. Even though I always store rifles and uppers in a ready-to-use state, I still need to verify that I didn't forget anything. First, I need to clean the bore, so I run a cleaning patch through the barrel. It comes out with a good amount of oil on it. Then I visually inspect the barrel and the bolt assembly, making sure that the firing pin rattles in the bolt assembly. Everything looks copacetic. I lightly oil the bolt assembly, double-check the gas block, a part of the AR platform that is toward the front of the barrel. The gas tube begins here and terminates in the receiver. An adjustable gas block, like used on this upper, allows you to fine-tune the amount of gas from the barrel that impinges on the bolt assembly, forcing it open. To make sure it is set to subsonic, it is. Slap a subsonic magazine in the lower, rack the bolt, take aim and fire one round to foul the barrel. The first round through a clean barrel usually doesn't group where the following rounds will. So it is always a good practice to fire one round down the barrel to eliminate possible misses and prepare the rifle for action. I smile when all I hear is the bolt cycle, the round making a zing sound, and then a solid thunk when it hits a rock. I make one more stop by another weapons cache, take out a biohazard suit, slip it on with some biohazard boots, and now it's time to get the hell out of Dodge in a different direction than Destiny will assume I am going to head. Still, I can't help feeling that someone is watching me. I scan the hills around me, but I don't see anyone. Present, Destiny, following Ben. I knew when I delivered Ben's message to Jennifer it would shock her, and she would not recognize me from the pictures Ivan had drawn. And I left right before Elizabeth, Bernie, Jack, Masha, and Ivan arrived, because I knew many of them they would recognize me from Ivan's pictures. I quickly enter the woods and decide to make a small detour, because I left before showing them where the bunker was. I'm the one that needs to turn off the GPS jammer and the electronic warfare module, since I saw Ben make all the connections. I find the bunker without problems, open the door, go inside, and disconnect both devices from the batteries. Then I leave and immediately detect Ben's scent and follow him. I almost laugh when I see him dress in the chemical suit. I can tell he senses I am watching him, but he will never see me. Then he leaves in a direction contrary to his final destination, but it does not matter because I have already found him. I will follow him for some time, then I will catch up to him. Now this is surprising. Present, Jens, Stacy, Liz, Bernie, Jack, Masha, Ivan, and Samantha at the cabin. While I have been arguing with Stacy over who is going to fix the tunnels in the cabin, the crazy woman who was with Ben leaves. As far as I am concerned, it's good riddance to bad rubbish. Liz walks up and asks, Jens, how are you feeling, and what did the lady that is also a wolf say to you? Shit. Now I know why she was familiar. She's the woman in Ivan's pictures. What she said about Ben still being in love with me shocked me, and as a result, I didn't recognize her. Ivan also questions, Yes, Donald Duckson lady, what did Wolf, that is also lady, talk to you about? I decide I don't want to repeat what she told me about Ben, so I lie a little and say, I was busy arguing with Stacy and didn't recognize her. For some reason, Jennifer decided to lie about what the strange woman said to her, but I remember because it hurt like hell to hear that Ben sent all his love to her. I still have hopes that Ben will love me, but I don't understand something, so I ask, what in the hell is this Wolf that is also a lady? Are you telling me it was that strange woman who was with us? Liz answers, it's what Ivan calls her. Somehow she could communicate with Ivan when we were in the tunnels, and he drew some pictures of her and Ben together. Jennifer adds, yeah, the picture of Ben was so realistic I could feel his spirit. Liz adds, and she looked just like the picture too. Ivan dances around and says, Unca Ben and Wolf that is also a lady, puff and huff and blow all the bad men down until they leave. Then Wolf that is also a lady bring me to Mama and Papa. She take most good and excellent care of me. Papa, I learned many new and tricksy things from Unca Ben and cannot wait to show you. While that kid could talk, I noticed Wojciech coming back and begin to wonder, because when she walked up, Wojciech ran away while Bo and Patches became skittish. Now all three of them are fine. I wonder. I sure as hell don't know what Ivan is talking about, but I'm glad as hell to be out of the shackles and even happier that the Greenies and Mike are gone. But with them gone, the Marines have some immediate needs, so I stayed. I think this mythical topic can wait until later. What are we going to do about a place to stay tonight? Food and water. The woman who is with Jennifer, I assume it's Stacy Summers, answers, I have a contracting team coming to work on the tunnel entrances and the house. By the way, that reminds me, the strange woman who was here said to be careful with the porta potties and the entrances into the house, because Mike has booby-trapped them. Soon some trailers should arrive which we can stay in for the night. One is also a mobile kitchen stocked with food, but we will need someone to cook the food. Mabel walks up and offers, don't worry, I will cook you a meal you won't believe. After eating those nasty military rations, it will be great to finally whip up some real food. I realize I need to inform the men about the traps. I'm a little pissed at Jennifer because she forgot to mention it. So I give Masha a kiss and say, I need to go inform the troops about the traps. Please watch Ivan for me. She gives me another kiss and says, Jack, promise me you will not get hurt working with the traps. Hell's bells, sometimes my wife is too protective. I smile and answer, yes, Masha, I will be extra careful. I kneel on the ground next to my son and ask, Ivan, tell me more about this woman that is part wolf and part woman. He smiles at me and answers, Mama, she is very good woman and never ever use bad words like Donald Duckson lady or other lady that use so many bad words my ears hurt. She come to me in my dreams at night and dreams during day when mind wander and tell me things like you and Papa are fine and good. And then after Unca Ben rescue me, she hold me every night to keep safe and keep warm while in small hole in ground with many blinking lights. She also know where bad men were and keep us from getting caught by them. I question my son, Ivan, could you draw me a picture of her? He smiles and replies, yes, but first I need to draw many pictures for Donald Duckson lady. She want to put on wall and not on refrigerator. Jennifer adds to my son's comments, that's right, his drawings belong in a museum, not on the refrigerator. Elizabeth agrees, yeah, your boy has an incredible talent. I look at my son Ivan, stare at Jennifer and Elizabeth, and wonder if the time in the tunnels has affected their minds because my son's artwork has never been exceptional in quality. I motion to Stacy as she moves to the side of the group with me, and I question, Stacy, were you able to do anything with the videos? I smile as Stacy replies, hell yes, Sam. I sent them to the Truth Network where they edited them, and then had me do the dialogue to describe what was happening. This sounded interesting, so I continued my questions. How in the world were you able to do that? Stacy answers, it wasn't as bad as you think. They told me what was going on, and as I remembered it from being here, I was able to describe the action. They even gave me some of the dialogue. Liz walks up and has a fit. Samantha and Stacy begin talking about the Truth Network away from the group, and that attracts all my attention away from everything else. I move closer to them, and I sure as hell don't like hearing that Stacy Summers was acting as a reporter. Hell, she doesn't have any experience, and I'm not sure what credibility she has with the American public. I have heard enough. Walk over and confront her. What the hell are you talking about? Who the hell made you a reporter on my station? At first Stacy looked shocked, then she recovers and challenges me. Your station manager did. So if you have a problem with this, you can kiss my butt. Samantha also retaliates. Liz, I thought you were going to cease and desist with the Queen Bee routine. That's what we agreed was necessary for me to come back to the network. I get ready to continue with our verbal sparring when Jens interrupts. I remember the counterproductive arguing that has been occurring ever since I brought this team together, and Jack is right. It needs to end. It's time for me to get on my high horse, so I yell, All right, you three, cut this the hell out unless you can explain to me how this is helping to find Ben. Which, after all, is our primary mission. Ivan complains, Mama, Donald Duckson lady use a bad word. I look at Masha and request, Masha, I'm sorry, but until we finish this discussion, could you please remove Ivan? I have a feeling that he will hear many more bad words if you do not. Masha smiles and answers, Jennifer, thank you for your concern. I will do that, but first I would like to say something. Do I have your permission? I nod my head and Masha continues. Jennifer is correct. If the primary mission is to find Ben, then these petty arguments do not further that mission and should be terminated. Ben was here, so there is an excellent chance that he could still be close enough to be found. And instead of going after him, you are standing around and arguing. I have said my piece, now I will leave with my son. Masha leaves with Ivan. Stacy looks around and agrees. Hell, Masha is correct. Why are we wasting time when we could be going after Ben? I'm taking off immediately on my horse to see if I can catch him. Liz adds, and I will talk with Jack to see about having some of the Marines search for Ben. Finally, we are working like a team. Even though I am not excited about Stacy using her horse to try to find Ben, I assume I just need to trust her. Just as the team begins to listen to me, we are interrupted by present, Todd, Mira, Ira, and Alexei. We are in the middle of lunch when the hotel manager walks up and informs us, sorry, but your room has been canceled today, so you will need to vacate after you finish your lunch. I seriously reprimand myself since I was distracted by the girls and this excellent lunch and had lost concentration. I do a quick tactical assessment of the area and note our guards are finally gone. I sign, it is true, our guards have left. Mira jumps up and states, we can finally translocate to the cabin where I will find my Ben. Ira complains, Mira, it would be wise to partake in this repast to maintain our energy. Alexei adds, yes, Mira, with the starving children in Africa, it would be criminal to dispose of this food. Besides, we still need to pack our clothes. I am not surprised when Mira declares, I for one am packed, and Alexei, if you have such strong feelings for the children in Africa, I would suggest you send the food to them. Now I am leaving without or with you. She leaves as I look at the others and sign. As much as I hate to let this food go to waste, I also cannot be sure that this isn't some sort of trap of Mike's doing. Therefore, we must leave with her. Alexei gulps down his food. Ira smiles at me and compliments my actions. Todd, thank you for showing such concern for our family. However, how will we transverse to the cabin? Alexei solves that problem by saying, Ira, with our diplomatic passports, we can borrow an automobile without fear of undue repercussions. We leave the table, hurry back to the room, and find a big surprise when we arrive. Present, Zarika and Yasmin, in juvenile detention. Ms. Horning comes into my room and states, Zarika, you had your chance. Yasmin told us everything. Now she will go free and you will go to a woman's prison. I grin at her and ask, gee, Ms. Horndog, what did she tell you? She falters and lies. She told us you did everything. I decide to have some fun, so I challenge her. She told you about how I had sex with all the men in the hospital? The lying bitch answers, yes, that was one of the things she mentioned. I laugh and say, Ms. Hornahog, why don't you go tell your lies somewhere else? I never did anything like that, and Yasmin would never tell you anything about me. Ms. Horning threatens as she leaves. Time doesn't matter to me because I'm not locked up, so I have all the time in the world. Sooner or later one of you will crack and tell me what I want to know. I am sure she is leaving to talk with Yasmin. Ms. Horning walks into the room, but I don't give her a chance to say anything as I begin to sing. To the Beatles' tune Mean Mr. Mustard. Mean Ms. Hornhead sleeps in the park. Shaves in the dark, trying to save paper. Sleeps in a hole in the road. Saving up to buy some clothes. Keeps a tin bob note up her nose. Such a mean old bitch. Such a mean old bitch. Her sister Pam works in a shop. She never stops. She's a go-getter. Takes her out to date a queen. Only time she's ever been had. Always shouts out something obscene. Such a dirty old bitch. Such a dirty old bitch. I watch her face turn red with anger as she leaves the room. Present, Tom, Byron, and Inga at the cabin. We arrive at the cabin, and there's a real hullabaloo going on. I am shocked as hell since the once beautiful cabin site, which I would have loved to retire in, except for the snow, is being turned into a mobile home park. I look at Byron, and he demands, while I've lived in trailers before, I never did it in a mobile home park. I look at Tom and complain, what the hell is going on? They are ruining this place. Inga, who was on the phone, finishes her call and reports, friends, do not worry. I just talked to Masha, and all this is temporary because they cannot stay in the cabin as it was destroyed by fire. In addition, the entrances to the tunnels were also destroyed. However, I need to find Masha as there is a problem with Jack. Inga takes off running toward the mobile home park, and I look at Tom and say, I still don't like it. In this ecosystem, it will take years for the native grubbuts to grow back to hide the impact of this mobile home park. Tom looks at me and adds further to my concerns when he mentions, Byron, I like it even less than you because this arrangement of trailers is vulnerable to attack. I look at it, nod my head and agree. Yeah, we need to have a talk with whoever is in charge and find out what the hell they were thinking. Our discourse is over, so we follow Inga's path toward the mobile home park. Flashback, Ben, leaving Moscow. I checked the maps Yuri and my comrades left. They are nice as hell, and even had directions on them to the last known location of the Chechen scumsuckers. I found the one closest to Moscow, memorized most of the directions, started to drive away from the hospital and installed the scumsucker. It's manual transmission, of course, and my legs didn't quite work like they normally do. Yuri and the rest of my comrades laughed like hell and gave me shit about it. I started the begin, and this time made sure I didn't stall it as I left. It was hard as hell leaving, but what I said earlier to Yuri is more than true. If I didn't escape Moscow now, once Major Pain in the butt arrived, I would never be able to pull this off. I had no idea what plans he had for me, but he could take his plans and shove them. Thank God it was early in the morning, and the unbearable Moscow traffic was almost non-existent. I was making good time, made it to the edge of Moscow, and came upon my first checkpoint. I hoped like hell the documents I had would pass the muster as I stopped at the checkpoint and rolled down my window. The corporal who manned the checkpoint promptly saluted and requested, "Documents, sir." I handed him my documents. He then handed them to a private who took them inside the booth. I assumed to call in and make sure everything was legit, and then made small talk with me when he asked, "Sir, where are you going at such an early hour of the morning?" I glared at him and barked, "Corporal, my mission is classified and is none of your damn business." Then I got an evil thought in my mind, so I opened the door of the stepped out and ordered, "Corporal, you and the private fall in for inspection." I could tell he didn't expect this when he stammered, "Yes, yes, yes, sir." Immediately, he began to yell for the private to come out of the booth for inspection, so the private ran up like his, but was on fire and fell in beside the corporal. I barked, "Attention." They snapped to attention, and I began my inspection. I had this done frequently enough to me by officers, and now I understood better why. It was gratifying to throw around the authority which I now possessed. However, I did feel a little badly about doing it, so I wasn't as big a scumsucker as most officers I knew. I looked them over and ordered, "Both of your boots are disgraceful. You will polish them until you can see yourself in them. There are other uniform violations which at this time I choose to ignore. Private, are you finished with my paperwork?" He replied, "Yes, sir." I ordered, "Fall out and fetch it for me so I can continue with my mission." He ran into the booth, retrieved my documents, ran back with them and handed them to me and saluted. I returned the salute, began to climb back into when the private asked, "Sir, if you do not mind, I would like to shake your hand." I have never shaken the hand of a real Russian hero. I wondered what the hell he was talking about. Then I realized that Yuri must have played a trick on me. I figured I would play along, so I in turn held out my hand. The private vigorously shook my hand and stated, "Thank you, sir. Thank you very much." I finally climbed into started out this time without killing it and drove far enough away from the checkpoint that they wouldn't see me. I turned the interior light on, checked my uniform, and that son of a bitch Yuri. There were 2 ribbons on the ribbon rack that I didn't recognize because I had never seen them before. What the hell had Yuri done to me? Flashback, Tatiana, in Moscow. I was not sure what to do other than to wait for Masha and Jack to arrive. Ben's clothes and wheelchair were still in the room, so how in Hades could he have left him less? I suddenly remembered how much better our lovemaking sessions had been for the last week and wondered something. I ran to the nurse's station, grabbed Ben's chart off the chart rack, found Yuliana's report of Ben's physical therapy session from yesterday, and gasped when I read, "Patient displayed greater control over his lower extremities during the post-treatment massage than during the actual physical therapy session, suggesting that the patient could have some psychological issues connected with his injuries which prevent him from properly moving his lower extremities." Psychological issues, my butt. Ben had successfully deceived Yuliana, me and the doctors into believing he still could not walk when I was now certain he had recovered his ability to walk. I asked the unit clerk, "Did my patient have any visitors last night or this morning?" She surprised me when she checked the log and answered, "There are none listed." I knew better as someone had come into the hospital and helped my Ben to escape. I just bet that Spetsnaz team of his had something to do with it. The problem was they were a close-knit group and would never admit they helped Ben to anyone except possibly one of their own like Jack. Where in Hades were Masha and Jack when I needed them? Flashback, Masha and Jack, in Moscow. I wanted to leave sooner than we were able because Tatiana needed my support. But Jack was so depressed about Ben that my first responsibility was to him, and I knew what he needed to cheer up. The best way was sex. We finished another glorious romp, and Jack said, "Thanks, Masha. Sorry if I wasn't my best like last night, but I'm distracted about where the hell Ben went." I held him, kissed him and told him, "Jack, my love, you were great last night and great today. Making love to you is like a smorgasbord because you know so many different ways. I do not think I will ever grow tired of you. Now let us shower, go to the hospital, and see if we can determine where Ben is or how he escaped." We took a hot shower together, helped to dry each other, then we each got dressed, me in a nice pink blouse, black skirt and high heels. I was a little shocked when Jack put on his service uniform instead of his Spetsnaz BDUs and questioned, "Are you wearing those because Major M is arriving today?" I felt sorry for him because he was having troubles buttoning the uniform, so I went over and helped him while he replied, "That's right. Major M comes back today, and then he will have my butt for not keeping an eye on Ben." That reminded me that I never told Jack my plan. As I continued to help him with the buttons, Ben was right. My Jack had gained weight, and I decided he would eat more healthy food from now on. I revealed my plan to Jack. When I was complete, he smiled at me and questioned. Masha came up with a hell of a plan which could actually save my butt. When she was done, I smiled at her and asked, "Masha, honey, do you think it will work?" She returned her wonderful smile and replied, "I think it will depend on how it is sold. I have some colleagues at the hospital who should be able to insert the needed documents into Ben's chart to ensure our plan is believable." I became a little concerned because the documents could very well end up in Ben's permanent record, so I asked for clarification. "Masha, I know you want to help me. However, we can't do it at the expense of wrecking Ben's career." As we were ready to leave, she touched my hand and simply asked, "Jack, do you trust me?" I nodded my head and answered, "Of course I do." Things were fine until we reached the hospital, and then all hell broke loose. Tatiana ran up to Masha, got into her face, and began yelling at her in Russian. Masha backed up, yelled something back at Tatiana, and then slapped the hell out of her. And I don't mean a simple smack on the face. It was a resounding slap, so hard I was amazed Tatiana didn't spit out some teeth. Instead of Tatiana recoiling from the slap, she jumped on Masha, and the fight was on. And I was very concerned about both women because they seemed as serious as a heart attack. The punches and kicks they were landing had to hurt like hell. I needed to do something, so I motioned to an orderly standing behind Tatiana what I wanted to do. He nodded his head in agreement. We saw our opening when Masha and Tatiana separated a little, so I ran up behind Masha and grabbed her in a bear hug, as the orderly did the same to Tatiana. Masha fought like hell and yelled, "Let me go so I can teach her a lesson in humility." Tatiana added, "Let me go so I can show Masha how to fight." I kissed Masha on the neck and whispered to her, "Masha, honey, this needs to stop because we are not doing anything to find Ben." She tried her best to headbutt me, but I dodged it and decided I needed to get her attention. So I squeezed her as hard as I could, picked her up off the ground, and stated, "If you try to headbutt me again, I will drop you and your lovely butt on the floor." She finally calmed down until Tatiana coded the orderly with a head butt and charged toward us. I spun around with my back facing Tatiana, gave Masha a good push that sent her flying, and turned just in time because Tatiana threw one hell of a punch at me. I easily blocked the punch. She then tried to kick me, which I also blocked. Yeah, I was as surprised at myself as you all must be. I guess I must have learned a few things from the fights I lost to Ben. Tatiana threw another punch. I reached out, grabbed her by the arm, and twisted it up, around, and behind her. Yeah, I had her in a hell of an arm lock. I put my free hand on her shoulder to keep her from flipping up and over me to get free, and to also keep her from getting too close to me and stomping on my feet or head-butting me. I twisted more and increased the pressure on her arm until I heard her scream, "Jack, stop. You are breaking my arm." I kept her in the arm lock and answered, "Tatiana, you stop fighting, or so help me God, I will break your arm." Tatiana slowly stopped fighting, so I gradually decreased the pressure on her arm, but I did not release the hold. Then I heard Masha say, I was amazed at my Jack for successfully controlling an enraged Tatiana without becoming injured himself, and I was sure he could and would break her arm, which would not be a good thing. So I said, "Jack, thank you for defending me, but I believe the crisis is over." Jack didn't immediately release his hold on Tatiana. Instead, he questioned, "Tatiana, what will you do if I release you?" She sobbed her answer, "I will apologize to Masha. I was just upset that Ben was gone and that both of you took so long to arrive. Masha, please forgive me, and please have Jack release me." I smiled at my Jack and said, "Tatiana, I accept your apology. Jack, please release her." Jack very angrily threatened, "Okay, I will release her, but if she tries anything next time, I will break her arm." He released her. Tatiana continued to cry, and I suggested, "Let us move our activities into Ben's room." We moved into Ben's room, then Tatiana sobbed, hugged me, and said, surprisingly in English, "Masha, I think I discovered two things. First, I am sure that Ben could walk, and second, I believe the Spetsnaz helped Ben get out of the hospital. Do you think Jack could talk with the Spetsnaz and reveal where Ben went?" Jack answered her, "Tatiana, I know where Ben went. He left to kill the rest of the Chechens responsible for the murders at the school. I will try to speak to the Spetsnaz, but I don't think it will do any good because they consider Ben one of them while I am just an outsider. Tatiana wailed, my Ben will be killed by the Chechens. I looked at Jack for assistance, and thank God he figured out what I wanted him to do. He quickly added, Tatiana, if it was anyone but Ben, I would say that your analysis would be correct. But hell, this is Ben we're talking about, and I figure we have a damn good chance of him making it back here alive and uninjured. I needed something to distract Tatiana, and I knew exactly what that something was. I continued, it is really unfortunate that when he does make it back here, he will be arrested and sent to prison. Tatiana stopped crying and stammered a question. What? What? What do you mean? Now that I had her attention, I informed her. Ben has gone AWOL, which in both America and Russia is a serious military offense for which they will severely punish him. Not only that, the major returns today. Tatiana gave us a very sad look and questioned, Masha, is there nothing we can do? I answered, well, I do have a plan, but we will need to work very quickly. Flashback, Jennifer, at the military hospital. I was elated about Bear being arrested and danced around the room like the girl from Flashdance until Katie, my nurse, walked in and declared, Jennifer, your father and the JA just made the biggest mistake in the world. I stopped dancing, looked at her and questioned, what in the heck do you mean? She glared at me and answered, I just got off the phone with Olga and I told her about Robert being arrested. She's going to cancel the performance of Swan Lake because she says there are no other male dancers who could dance his part. That was the best news ever because now I wouldn't have to dance that part. I crossed my arms and challenged, so what if it gets canceled? Katie mimicked my posture and retaliated, so what? I will tell you so what, young lady. I have invested many hours of my time and many dollars of my own money in this performance. I interrupted her, don't you worry about your money and time. I will pay you for both. She glared at me and yelled, shut up until I am finished. I also have many of my old friends and colleagues coming to watch the performance, and if it is canceled, it will reflect badly on me. I decided if she could play tough. So could I, so I answered, well, that's just tough beans, isn't it? Then I found out just how tough Katie was willing to play when she announced, you know, I was going to drop the child abuse case with the JA against your mother, but after what you just said, you can forget about it. Say goodbye to your mother because she will be going to jail. I was in shock and never dreamed she could be such a wicked witch. She turned and left the room before I could say anything. When I came to my senses, I knew I needed to talk to Daddy, so I called him. Flashback, Glenn, at the military hospital. The JA and I were in the cafeteria drinking a cup of coffee, spiked with a snort of bourbon from a flask in the JA's briefcase, and celebrating 2 successful victories today. Getting Evelyn into the therapy program and arresting the snot-nosed little son of a bitch that had been stalking my Jennifer. When my phone rang, I looked, saw it was Jennifer. I told the JA, it's my daughter, give me a minute. I answered the phone and Jennifer immediately informed me, Daddy, I think I really messed up this time. The JA's phone rang. He answered it and began to frown. I was sure Jennifer was overreacting to something, so I calmly asked, tell me what you think you did wrong this time. She began to cry and told me all about the fight with her nurse Katie and how she still planned to press charges against Evelyn. I was floored. I thought we had solved this problem. I told Jennifer, don't worry, my little girl, I am with the JA and we will be right up to take care of this. I hung up the phone about the same time as the JA hung up his phone. We both looked at each other and blurted, we have a problem. I continued, don't tell me. That was Katie and she wants to continue to press the charges against Evelyn for hitting Jennifer. He nodded his head and confirmed, that's right. Do you have any idea what prompted her to continue with the charges? As I relayed what Jennifer told me, his face grew glummer. Then I asked, so do you have any ideas on what we can do to prevent this from happening? He shook his head and answered, sir, she really has us over a barrel. I suggested one of my favorite ways to deal with things. How about if I shipped her, but off to Thule? The JA shook his head and answered, Glenn, you can't do that this time because it would almost assure a guilty verdict during the trial. The word trial shocked me and I asked, well then what the hell can we do about this? He answered, like I said before, she really has us over a barrel because I already have her complaint in my briefcase. I shook my head and questioned, I suppose losing the complaint is an impossibility? He agreed, that's right, because she has a copy of the complaint. The only thing I can suggest is that we have a long talk with her and see if we can reach an agreement without giving up too much. I hesitated for a moment, then decided to ask, just what do you mean by give up too much? What he told me confirmed my fears. I said, well, I need to go and have a talk with Jennifer. He caused further concern when he said, sir, you need to prepare her for the worst. Flashback, Glenn, at the military hospital. Daddy walked into my room, and by his glum look, I could tell something was very wrong. I jumped off my new clean bed, hugged Daddy and asked, Daddy, what's wrong? He pulled away from me, shook his head, and answered, Jennifer, Your nurse Katie really has us between a rock and a hard place. The JA informed me with the evidence he has against Evelyn. If your mother goes to trial over hitting you, she will lose, and we will either lose custody of you or Evelyn could go to prison. I was shocked, and now I wished I had not antagonized Katie. I fought back the tears and asked a very hard question. Daddy, is there anything that we can do? Like ship her to the cold place that you like to send people to? He looked at me and answered, that won't fix the problem this time. Jennifer, you're a big girl now, and I'm not going to lie to you. The JA and I are going to negotiate with her after her shift is over to see if we can come to an agreement. We're not sure what it will take, but we hope she will listen to reason. I bit my lip, thought for a moment, and then decided, Daddy, I am willing to help out in almost any way that I can. Daddy smiled at me. I felt better, and he said, thanks, Jennifer. I knew we could count on you. We waited impatiently for Katie's shift to end. Flashback, Alexei at home. I finished eating my dinner of pelmeni off plates on the kitchen floor. Father left, most likely to hide and observe me, and I came up with another great idea. I ran into my room, grabbed the terrible cryptex torture device my parents had given me, ran into the living room, spun around 3 times, lay on the rug, held the cryptex between my 2 hands like a dog would hold a bone, and began to chew on the cryptex. As I assumed, it was not very long until Father came and questioned, Alexei, what are you doing? I stopped chewing on the cryptex, looked at Father, and answered, I am chewing on the chew toy you and Mother gave me. He calmly walked over to me, sat on the floor beside me, and reached for the cryptex. I growled at him and snapped at his hand. His hand recoiled so fast I had to fight dissolving in laughter. He then asked, Alexei, might I see the cryptex? I quickly glanced between my father and the cryptex several times and answered, only if you promise to return it to me when you are finished. Father assured me, Alexei, why would I want to keep your cryptex when your mother and I gave it to you as a gift? I panted like a dog and answered, I don't know. Why would you? I could tell he was becoming annoyed at me because his face reddened slightly. He stated, Alexei, I am going to borrow the cryptex to show you something, then I will give it right back. I covered the cryptex like a dog protecting its favorite bone and inquired, you promise? I let him take the cryptex from me, and it was sad how he patiently explained how it worked. Don't you remember, Alexei? You turn the letter wheels until you determine the correct code, then it will open. He practiced turning the first wheel several times to show me. Father handed it to me and said, now you try it, Alexei. I put it back between my hands like I was a dog holding a bone, chewed on the end of it, then looked at Father and said, thank you, Father, this is an excellent chew toy. He gave me a look of total disbelief, stood up, muttered to himself, and left. As he left, I again questioned, might I be able to play with chow mein? I realized I had perhaps gone too far when Father yelled, no, you may not play with chow mein. Flashback, Safia, in Israel. I had shot Akam in his gross stomach. He had screamed like a little girl. His fiancées confronted Mira and Ira in their respective roles of Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. And then the fiancées of Akam attacked Mira and Ira, which was a lost cause because they were no match for them. It was only a matter of time until either Mira or Ira became pissed enough to really hurt one of the young girls when Akam surprised us all when he said, future wives of mine, stop fighting before you become injured. They stopped, and he continued with something that was totally shocking. Sherlock Holmes, if you really feel I am the evil Professor James Moriarty, then I totally submit myself to your will. You may examine me any way you choose, even if it is by means of an autopsy. Just please do not hurt my future wives, and also if you do kill me, please make sure to take care of them, because they have been greatly wronged in my household. Sherlock looked at Watson and commented. Flashback, Mira and Ira, in Israel. I looked at Dr. Watson and questioned, Dr. Watson, do you feel the evil Professor James Moriarty would be capable of such a selfless act? Dr. Watson responded, Sherlock, he is not known for his compassion. In fact, he is renowned for the opposite behavioral characteristic, ruthlessness. I then proposed an action utilizing some of the harshest words my character could utter. Then Watson, perhaps we have made a mistake. Dr. Watson belligerently retorted, no, Sherlock, I was merely following your lead. It is you who has made the mistake. You wrongly assumed Akam was the evil Professor James Moriarty when indeed, as we both now oculate, he is only Akam the obese. Then once again Dr. Watson deviated from his character when Ira continued. This would not have occurred if you had relinquished the role of Sherlock Holmes as I entreated. I glared at Ira and demanded, do I need to teach you a lesson once again? Ira teased. I teased Mira, my sister. If the lesson illustrates how to distinguish the evil Professor James Moriarty from Akam the obese, that is a lesson I already comprehend. Then I added kindling to the inferno. Perhaps your magnifying optic clouds your vision? Mira responded with a terrible insult. And perhaps you are the south end of a northbound mule. I continued the verbal assault. No, I could be wrong. I then suggested thoughtfully, perhaps your stupid deerstalker hat fits too tightly for your pridefully swollen cranial carapace? Mira commanded, you must reverse that statement or face my ire. I laughed and taunted, I will not willingly retract anything. You must force me to recall my words. Then our primary Baker Street irregular did something which amazed and upset both of us. Flashback, Todd, on the island. We had rescued the captured women and had just started to release them when one of them asked, Sir, are you an American and do you speak English? I was shocked and attempted to reply, but all that came out were some caveman-sounding grunts. Lou said something to her, and as nearly as I could determine she explained that I couldn't speak because of my recent injury. The woman put her left hand on my hand then said, and signed, at the same time, then I will teach you sign language. I made some of the signs Lou taught me. The lady smiled and said, again while she signed, I see that you have learned some Japanese sign language probably from this other lady. You should know that unlike American Sign Language, which for the most part directly correlates to the American language, Japanese Sign Language is its own language. I wish like hell I could talk to her and explain what I felt. Somehow, she must have sensed my stress and stated, you must have recently lost the ability to speak because I can see the frustration in your eyes. Do not worry, as this is normal. When we are finished with your lessons, you will be able to communicate again. I pointed to Lou and tried to speak. The lady smiled at me and answered, yes, I will also teach you Japanese Sign Language. That day marked a big turning point in the road to my recovery. Present. Ben, leaving the cabin. I'm using the chemical suit and booties to try to make it hard for Destiny to trail me. I'm not sure she is a shaman. In fact, I don't know what the hell she is, other than a crunchy granola chick. But after watching her figure out where to place the Tabasco bottle IEDs, I knew she had a hell of a good nose on her. Oh, that reminds me. She won the bet about where to place the final 2 IEDs. Hers was detonated by the greenies while mine was undisturbed. I'm sure glad I didn't place a bet on that. I take off running, but I still can't help but feel I'm being watched. As I move further away from the cabin, that feeling finally leaves. Present, Destiny, following Ben. Huh, now this is very interesting. While I'm following Ben, I pick up someone following me. The interesting part is they aren't human. I wrongly assumed if anyone is going to follow me, it would be Stacy Summers. She's smart as a whip, and I'm sure after the way the bear ran away and the horses behaved when I arrived to deliver Ben's message to Jennifer, she discerned I was the cause of the previous problems with the bear and horses. No, it's this strange-looking dog. I'm hot on Ben's trail, and he's hot on my trail. No problem. I will just turn and confront him. I turn, let him catch up to me, snarl at him, raise the hair on my back and, hello, what the hell are you doing? Present. Ben, leaving the cabin. I didn't like the feeling I had earlier of being watched because that particular talent is almost never wrong. So I decide to take a side trail, double back, and see if I can catch the scumsucker tailing me. I reach a little clearing, and I blink twice because I can't believe my eyes. On the side of the clearing furthest from my position, there is a mangy-looking dog and Anastasia the fox. Hell, I haven't seen her since I've been back, and it's good as hell to see her again. The surprising part is that on the side of the clearing closest to me, there's a wolf. Hell's bells, I thought all the wolves in the Rocky Mountains had been killed years ago. The 3 of them are in a serious Mexican standoff that I can hear even where I'm located. The mangy dog and Anastasia the fox are growling like crazy, and the hair on their backs is standing so tall they look like they have mohawks, and the wolf isn't backing down. It's snarling and snapping at the 2 of them, and its hair is tall, but not quite as tall as the mangy dog and Anastasia. But a mangy dog and Anastasia the fox against a wolf? There isn't much hope for the 2 of them, so I decide to intervene. Hell, most everyone I grew up with in this area would just shoot the wolf because they would worry it would kill their livestock or just because they would have a chance to brag about killing a wolf. But hell, I don't have any damn nasty cows, and all the horses, other than Bo, are a real pain in the butt. Besides, Grandpa's teaching still resounds in my heart. Ben, never kill an animal that you don't plan on eating. And I'm sure as hell not going to eat a wolf. So I stand up and yell at the wolf. Get the hell out of here and leave that mangy dog and my fox alone before I shoot your butt. I pull up my rifle, scope it out, and put around a couple feet behind the wolf just to emphasize I am serious. It works because the wolf takes off like its tail is on fire. The mangy dog and Anastasia the fox look at me, and I swear Anastasia smiles at me. Then they run away in the opposite direction toward the cabin. Present, Destiny, following Ben. That was too close for comfort, but again the Great Spirit smiled on me. When I confronted the dog, I assumed he would run away. Instead, he stood his ground, and I was shocked when a fox joined him. So I redoubled my snarling and raised the hair on my back even higher, but it didn't faze them, and I was concerned that I would have to fight and possibly hurt them. Unbeknownst to me, because of my involvement with the impending confrontation, Ben doubled back and saw the three of us. Thank the Great Spirit, he didn't shoot me like many would. He did, however, scare the hell out of me when he yelled about his fox. I need to ask him later about this. And then fired an almost silent round that hit a few feet behind me. Yes, if Ben had wanted, he could have killed me, and I would have failed in my mission. Then I realized I had Ben's grandfather to thank, because he taught Ben correctly. I run as far and as fast I can until I determine I am out of range. Then I switch back to my human form, because I don't want to elicit the ire of that dog or fox again. I slip back to the clearing where we had the confrontation, and I discover a big problem. Present. Ben, leaving the cabin. Now that was fun. It was great seeing the wolf hightail it out of the area like her tail was on fire. Yeah, I knew she was a she because I could tell when I put my scope on her that she didn't have any male wolf parts. Once I'm sure the Mexican standoff is over, it's my turn to hightail it out of the area, and once again I switch directions. I secretly smile to myself because something really good has come out of the protracted battle with the greenies. I had begun to feel a little old and slow, but kicking there, but has rejuvenated me. The old Ben is back. Hell, I'm not even too upset anymore about not killing Mike. Destiny was right, but I will never admit that to her. It was more satisfying to put him through all the shit, much of it literal, that I did, and then knowing the scumsucker slunk away like a beaten cur with its tail between its legs. Wait a minute. That was his female wolf, and I remember Ivan called Destiny a wolf that is also a lady. Could she have been? No way. Present. Jens, Stacy, Liz, Bernie, Jack, Masha, Ivan, and Samantha at the cabin. I begin to get everyone focused on finding Ben instead of arguing. Masha and Ivan return. Then Stacy's trailers begin to arrive, and we are distracted. Stacy rides off on her horse and begins to order the truckers where to put the trailers. This actually makes me happy since I would rather have her messing with her trailers than trying to find my Ben. We hear a hell of an explosion, and I worry at first we are under attack again. I turn my head in the direction of the explosion, point, and question, is that what I think it is? Bernie follows my arm and provides the answer with another question. Is that a flying porta-potty? Liz questions, without swearing because of Ivan. What in the world caused that? It crashes to the ground, and a bunch of Marines begin yelling. Stacy rides over to the trashed porta-potty on the ground, pulls out her phone, and makes a call on her mobile phone. Hey, I guess phones are working again here. How the hell did that happen? Then rides over to us on her damn horse and clues us in. The old guy who was here was trying to defuse a bomb and the porta-potty accidentally triggered it. I look at Masha. She turns white and asks, "Do you mean my husband?" Stacy answers, "I guess so since the Marines are calling him Jack, and he's really messed up. I did call my medic, and he should be here soon." Masha frantically asks, "Elizabeth?" Liz interrupts, "Masha, go. I will take care of Ivan." Masha runs toward the trash porta-potty, then some woman I don't know runs up and asks, "Did I just see Masha leave?" I demand, "Who the heck are you, and what are you doing on my property?" She waves her hand and says, "Forget it. I know it was her." And then she takes off running after Masha. Then a couple guys I haven't seen for a long while arrive and add to the confusion. Present, Tom and Byron, at the cabin. We watch as Inga talks to Jennifer, then takes off after Masha. We walk up to Jennifer and I comment, "Don't tell me you got shot again." Jennifer looks at us and quips, "I would say something worse, but Ivan is here, so look what the cat dragged in." By her comment, I understand to watch my language as to not incur the wrath of Masha, then laugh and ask, "What in the world happened to the porta-potty? Did someone eat too many beans?" Jennifer gets a serious look on her face and answers, "Mike left us some traps, and while Jack tried to defuse one, he accidentally triggered it." Byron yells, "Should. I need to go see if he's okay." He then runs after Masha and Inga. I hold up my hand and say, "Give me a minute, then we can continue to trade insults." I pull out my phone, raise some serious hell with the SIFs, and they finally promise to send one of their medical planes to assist with Jennifer, Jack, and any other injured personnel. I hang up the phone and Jennifer says, "Wow, you really gave them a very bad time. What's going on?" I show Jennifer my disgust with my expression and tell her, "I'm ashamed as heck with what they've done or mostly failed to do. Heck, they bailed on you guys when things got tough, and I've been trying for a week to get them back here, but now they've finally agreed. I'm glad I could finally change their minds." Jennifer smiles and says, "Thanks, Tom, for giving them a heck for me. But I'm not sure it was you that talked them into coming back. I think it was Mike's leaving that influenced it more." I smack my head and agree, "I bet you're right. I didn't think of that. He's really given the SIFs a load of BS, so it's no wonder they wouldn't return until now." Ivan interrupts our conversation and says, "I know BS is bullshit. You say a bad word." I smile at him, decide to turn the tables and respond, "Oh yeah? Well, you just said 2 bad words. Wait until I tell Masha." I feel bad because he begins to cry and Liz complains, "Tom, just look what you have done." She takes Ivan away. I return to a smile and say to Jennifer, "That's better. Now I don't have to watch what I'm saying." Before I forget, whoever is setting up the trailers is really screwing up. Jennifer smiles and suggests, "That would be Stacy Summers, and I would appreciate it if you related your concerns directly to her." I rub my chin and ask, "Isn't she the one that spent some time with Ben? That must be uncomfortable for you." Jennifer answers, "You don't know the half of it. Miranda Sedankina was here for a short time too, until Mike took them away." I scratch my head and ask Jennifer to elaborate. Was it just her or her equally evil twin sister? Jennifer gives me a halfway good answer. It was Miranda, her sister Irina, their brother Alexei, and another guy named Todd. He was the only one who seemed okay. I whistle then reply, "Shit. 3 assassins, and what I can only assume is an assassin in training." Jennifer looks perplexed and asks, "Tom, please fill in that answer a bit." I shake my head and respond, "You know about the twin sisters, but if Todd is who I think he is, he's more dangerous than they are, but thank God he's not psychotic. And I am assuming the twins are teaching their brother, who I didn't even know they had, the so-to-say family business." Then I continue, "You've had one hell of a time here, and let me tell you our mission didn't go any better. Near as we can figure out, we think Megan and the narcotic lord left before we even arrived. Inga thinks that Megan might have come here and helped to get your mother out of the mental hospital." Jennifer asks, "Was Inga the woman who ran up to me and asked about Masha?" I confirm, "Yeah, that was her. I'm not sure what their relationship is, but she was worried as hell about Masha." Jennifer continues the interrogation. "Did Inga say what made her believe Megan helped my mother to escape?" I think she told me at the time, so I rack my brain for the answer, but only have a serious brain fart and say, "I'm not sure. You will need to ask her." Jennifer laughs. It's good as hell to hear her laugh until she insults me. "Tom, don't lie to me. Tell the truth. Do you have a case of CREFT?" I scratch my head and ask, "What the hell is craft?" Jennifer continues with her laugh and says, "Not craft, CREFT. It's an acronym for can't remember a thing." I laugh and correct her. "That's not right because I can remember many things, but sometimes like right now I have a case of CRS." Jennifer laughs once again, and I'm amazed she has kept her sense of humor through all the shit she's been though and answers, "Well, I know that one too. You can't remember to shit." I laugh again at the spirited exchange. "Excuse me, Missy, you added an extra T that I didn't add. I don't have problems shitting because I'm not some constipated woman. But sometimes I can't remember shit." Jennifer provides an immediate example, like how you were going to go tell Stacy she's screwing up at setting up the trailers. I reply with a tease, "I can tell when I'm not wanted." And I leave to go tell Stacy how she's messing up. Present, Stacy and Tom, at the cabin. I'm busy telling the drivers where I want the trailers when some COF, crusty old fart, walks up and asks, "Are you Stacy Summers?" I answer, "I sure am, and I'm busy right now." He laughs and insults me. "Yeah, you're busy up." I turn Patches toward him, glare at him and demand, "What the hell are you talking about?" He points to the trailers and answers, "While you might aesthetically like lining the trailers up in neat little rows, like the little suburban houses made of ticky-tacky, what you are creating is an excellent opportunity for the terror scumsuckers to blow the hell out of everyone with fewer RPGs." I begin to challenge him, then look at the line of trailers and realize he could be right, so I challenge him. "You are probably correct, and I didn't even think about that. Since you seem to be such an expert on this, I will leave you to arrange the trailers to your liking." He complains, "Gee, thanks for nothing." I tease him back, "Nothing ventured, nothing gained." He begins to tell the drivers to move the trailers again, to which they spew a mix of complaints and whines. He then counters, "I am the wisest man alive, for I know one thing, and that is that I know nothing." I recognize the quote as being from Plato, so I counter with Tolstoy from War and Peace, "We can know only that we know nothing. And that is the highest degree of human wisdom." He continues with, "To do nothing is the way to be nothing." That one was from Hawthorne, so I give him one to really think about. Opportunities will come and go, but if you do nothing about them, so will you. So stop wasting my time with nothing and do something with these trailers. He laughs at me, gives me a half salute, and says, "Yes, sir." I correct with a quote from Ben, "I'm not an officer, I work for a living." Then I begin heading toward the trash porta potty. He slings one more insult as I leave. I never met a woman that didn't think she was a general with the last name of Payne. I wonder who the COF really is when I turn and watch how he's arranging the trailers. Even though I don't know who the hell he is, I decide he does know how to position the trailers. Present, Todd, Ira, and Alexei, in their room. After being informed the hotel room was no longer being furnished free, as in free beer, of charge for us, we decide to leave together in case this was some sort of trap planned by the ever-devious Mike. Mira informed us she didn't have to pack, didn't bother to wait for the rest of us, and dashed back to the room. When we arrived at the room, there was no Mira. Ira asks, "Where in Hades is my sister?" Alexei searches the room and states, "Myra's hand baggage is gone." I don't like this at all, so I sign. I do believe Mira has already left. Ira vociferously complains. Mira must be suffering from an intense case of neural synaptic gas, brain fart, to depart without the remainder of us when she could be the objective of a snare. Instead of complaining, we need to act, so I sign. If Mira was to go to the cabin site by herself, which method of transportation would she use? Ira smiles at me uncomfortably, again, and answers. Once again, Todd shows extreme care for my family with his excellent question. I crimson slightly and respond. I am aghast to admit that my sister and I are not experts in the operation of quad-wheeled motorized transportation. Alexei laughs, rudely interrupts, and then offers yet again. That is putting it quite mildly. My sisters are a danger to civilization when behind the wheel. I have informed them if they would practice by playing the great game of Grand Theft Auto, their driving skills would be greatly enhanced. I glare at him and continue. However, our skill on two-wheeled vehicles is unrivaled. Therefore, I feel we can assume that my sister Mira has borrowed a motorcycle. Todd makes an observation which nullifies my assumption and signs. Ira, I do not want to anger you with a contradiction, but if Mira borrowed a motorcycle, where would she place the suitcases? Alexei finally responds with something well worth. Todd makes an excellent observation, however we are wasting time when we should be looking for her, so I inform them. We are wasting time discussing this when we should be packing the excellent suitcases the Broadmoor Hotel provided for us along with the fine clothing they furnished. With the head start Mira has on us, we will never catch her unless we were to take a helicopter, so I would suggest we pack and then find a car we can borrow. Ira and Todd both nod their heads in agreement, so we begin to pack, while discussing my sister Myra's temporary insanity. Present, Mira, heading to the cabin. Unlike the rest of my family and Todd, I have been prepared for the moment at which we could leave so I could rescue my Ben from the evil clutches of Major Mike. I rush to the room, bring my bags downstairs and through the front doors where I have previously observed a multitude of taxi cabs awaiting business. I choose not to take the first taxi cab in line because they have a tendency to be less motivated. Instead, I choose an older but still functional-appearing taxi cab. The driver helps me load my bags into the trunk. I get in the posterior seat behind the driver, and he questions, where to miss? I respond, Leadville, Colorado, haste of post. He scratches his head, deliberates a moment, and answers, Miss, I know I am picking you up from the Broadmoor Hotel, so that means you had to have some money to stay here. However, that trip will cost several $100s, so I would like to have a deposit of at least $100 before I agree to take you. I do not have time to argue with this buffoon, so I expertly apply the hold of sleeper to him. After a brief struggle, he succumbs to the hold and is rendered inoperable. I exit the posterior seat of the taxi cab, relocate the soporific taxi operator to the alternate anterior seat, assume the operator position, adjust all the controls for my frame size, and proceed haste of post toward Leadville. Present, Zarika and Yasmin, in juvenile detention. Another day, and once again Ms. Horndog comes into my room. I glare at her and say, forget it, I have nothing to tell you. Then I show her the finger, and she leaves. Ms. Hornahog comes into my room, so I turn, face the wall, and plug my ears. She has nothing to say that I wish to hear. I wait for some time, turn around, and she is gone. Dear listeners, next part of the story will be released soon. Please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.